Okay, welcome everybody, and thank you very much for joining us for this event that we are organizing today as part of the INNOAQUA project. My name is Dorinde Kleinegris, and I am a senior researcher at NORCE Research in Norway, and I'm also the coordinator of the INNOAQUA project. And herewith, I would also like to introduce my co-moderator of today, Natrah Ikhsan. Natrah is professor and head of the Department of Aquaculture, Universiti Putra Malaysia, UPM, where she also heads the Microalgae-Biota Technology and Innovation Group, ALBIC. Today, you might have seen already in the flyers, we will have 6 presenters who will talk about algae-based innovation for next level combined aquaculture production. So it's IMTA in a way, showcasing examples of production systems at pilot or near full-scale production, both in Europe and in Southeast Asia. After the presentations, we'll have a little bit of space for questions, and then we'll go to after each presentation, and then after all presentations, we'll have a panel discussion and room for questions from the audience. And this part will be moderated by Professor Patrick Sorgeloos. He's Emeritus Professor on Aquaculture at the University of Ghent in Belgium. More information about the speakers and the moderators you can also find in the flyer that you have had, hopefully, or that was included in the invite. And furthermore, I'd like to say that we'll be sharing the presentations afterwards, and the webinar will also be recorded and available on the YouTube channel of the European Aquaculture Society. Okay, then let me start off by shortly introducing the INNOAQUA project. So I'll start sharing. Yeah, I hope all is well and everybody can see my screen. So INNOAQUA focuses on sustainable aquaculture practices for innovative food products. And it's very much built around this technological backbone that we see in the center part. So the idea is that we have 2 demonstration sites, one demonstration site in Norway where we integrate the production of salmon and microalgae, and one demonstration site where we integrate the production of sole and macroalgae. And we'll have 2 presenters today, Rui and Pia, who will present all these demos in much more detail. After having them produce this biomass, the idea is that we'll use a biorefinery concept to break up all this biomass into different ingredients and turn them into all these fractions. And with these fractions, the idea is to formulate novel food products. And the part that cannot be used will be going into food packaging material. To make sure that we're producing foods that are interesting for consumers, we also focus very much on the social innovation aspects and trying to understand what consumers are after and making sure that there is going to be a consumer acceptance and market uptake. And of course, we're also looking into the sustainability of the developed products all the way from the start. And that's both the environmental, the economic, and the social sustainability. But also, as we're using waste streams, and then especially in Europe, this is a challenge. There's regulatory aspects that prevent us currently from doing so. So this is potentially also something that where we can learn from other places in the world. And finally, there's this outreaching strategy, which is also why we're, for example, having this webinar today. So I'll stop sharing my screen again. So that was about INNOAQUA. And then before we start with the presentations from all our presenters, we also have a couple of housekeeping messages from Anna from European Aquaculture Society.
Hi everyone, welcome to the INNOAQUA webinar. I will shortly share the event flyer in the chat, where you can find the detailed biographies of our moderators and speakers. Before we begin, a few practical notes needs to be shared with you. So all microphones and cameras are currently muted to ensure good sound quality. After each presentation, we will open the floor for 1 or 2 questions related to the content, especially if something needs the further clarification. During the final panel discussion, if you would like to ask questions live, please write in the chat, and then I will turn on your microphone and the camera. Please make sure that you are in a quiet environment before requesting to speak. Once acknowledged, I will grant you permission to activate your microphone and videos. Please use the Q&A section throughout the webinar, in which I will be sharing the flyer soon, to share your comments or the questions that you might be having. Please note, thanks Dorinde for mentioning that, but for the ones that join later, the webinar is being recorded, and recording will be shared with all the registered participants next week. Thanks you once again for being with us today, and we look forward to an engaging and interactive session.
Thanks so much, Anna. And then I would love to give the word to Natrah.
Hi, everyone. So I'll start by introducing myself again. My name is Natrah, and I'm from Universiti Putra Malaysia. And today I'm wearing the hat as the head of Algae-Biota Technology and Innovation Group, or known as ALBIC. And other than that, I'm also the head of Aquaculture Department, Faculty of Agriculture, UPM. And it is truly my pleasure to co-moderate to this session with Dorinde today. And we are all delighted to welcome participants joining us from Europe, Southeast Asia, and beyond, representing academia, industry, policy, and innovation platform. Other than INNOAQUA project and ALBIC, I would also like to add that this webinar is also organized by our partners, Institute of Climate Adaptation and Marine Biotechnology, Universiti Malaysia Terengganu. And we sincerely thank all partners and European Union for supporting this knowledge sharing platform. I think I would continue by introducing the next speakers. So yeah, from the Southeast Asia, we basically handpicked 3 distinguished guest speakers representing Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia, where these countries reflect diverse production system from coastal seaweed development, intensive IMTA-RAS integration, and tropical sea-based IMTA innovation. Thus, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, which is Dr. Montakan Tamtin, the Director of the Coastal Aquaculture Research and Development Division, Department of Fisheries, Thailand, and she will present an overview of seaweed cultivation and production in Thailand with strong links to policy and coastal livelihood. So Dr. Pam, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Montakan from the Department of Fisheries. My major work is about sustainability and develop and improve also for the economical important species for the coastal aquaculture species. And it's my pleasure, and thank you very much for the organization that invite me to share the experience of algae-based innovation and promotion of Thailand. Okay, and my presentation will highlight Thailand's approach to sustainable seaweed development, focusing on how it enhances incomes and improve livelihoods of coastal communities and farmers through innovations in compliance with BCG and SDG goals. And my presentation will have two sections. The first one, I would like to show you the showcase that we success in help the local communities and the farmers to improve their incomes. And this species is the new one, is the sea lettuce or Unva rigida. And so I will show you the video.
การออกทำการประมงบางครั้งคลื่นใหญ่ลมแรงเราก็ออกไม่ได้มันก็เป็นการขัดสนในครอบครัวก็เลยคิดหาอาชีพเสริมแล้วก็พอดีมาเห็นโอกาสของสาหร่ายผักกาดที่ทางศูนย์ได้จัดฝึกอบรมอะค่ะก็เลยสนใจทำเป็นผลิตภัณฑ์หลายๆอย่างขึ้นมาค่ะ
Okay, can you hear the sound? of the video? Yes.
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay.
Now we cannot hear you. Yeah. Okay.
We are going to start.
Mm-hmm.
พอเราแปรรูปขึ้นมาแล้วคือมันไม่เพียงพอต่อการจำหน่ายแล้วก็เลยมาเริ่มทำการเลี้ยงสาหร่ายผักกาดทะเลเพิ่มขึ้นค่ะเราก็ต้องขอบคุณทางศูนย์คุ้งกระเบนศูนย์ศึกษาการพัฒนาคุ้งกระเบนคือได้มีส่วนช่วยในการผลักดันแล้วก็ดูแลจนกระทั่งเราสามารถที่จะทำงานได้ทำให้เกิดรายได้เพิ่มพูนขึ้นแล้วก็ทำให้ชีวิตของเราก็ดีขึ้นแล้วก็สิ่งที่สำคัญที่สุดก็คือมีความสุขในเวลาที่เรานั่งเลี้ยงสาหร่ายผักกาดทะเลเนี่ยจะมีเพื่อนบ้านของเราที่เขาเลี้ยงปลากระพงเลี้ยงกุ้งพวกนี้ค่ะเขาก็มองแล้วว่าเฮ้ยบ้านนี้เขาเลี้ยงกุ้งเลี้ยงปลากันทำไมบ้านนี้มานั่งเลี้ยงผักกาดสาหร่ายเนี่ยเป็นเพราะอะไรใครก็ทำกันมันเป็นอาชีพใหม่ที่ไม่มีใครก็เคยทำเขาเลยมองว่าเราเนี่ยบ้าหรือเปล่าเนี่ยมานั่งงมเลี้ยงสาหร่ายแต่เราก็ศึกษาจนได้ผลในทุกวันนี้ค่ะช่วงที่ผ่านมานะคะล้มลุกคลุกคลานค่ะก็ลองผิดลองถูกจนว่าศูนย์คุ้งกระเบนเนี่ยเขามีการอบรมก็มาลองเลี้ยงใหม่พอเราเลี้ยงได้ทางศูนย์คุ้งกระเบนก็เห็นว่าเราสามารถเลี้ยงได้ผลเขาก็เลยเข้ามาสนับสนุนค่ะโดยมีงบของสวก.ก็มีถังมาให้นะคะแล้วก็มีออกซิเจนมาให้ค่ะมาช่วยสนับสนุนเกษตรกรนะคะ
สำหรับในเรื่องของกระบวนการตั้งแต่ต้นน้ำก็คือการเพาะเลี้ยงเลยเนี่ยเราสามารถสร้างความมั่นใจให้กับผู้บริโภคได้เนื่องจากว่าเราเลี้ยงตามมาตรฐานมกส.ของกรมประมงเนาะเพราะฉะนั้นมั่นใจได้เลยว่าสดสะอาดปลอดภัยไร้สารผลิตภัณฑ์ของเราเองนะก็ยังได้รับมาตรฐานสินค้าประมงธงเขียวเนาะผ่านแลบของกรมประมงเองก็ดีแล้วก็มาตรฐานอย.ซึ่งถือว่าเป็นมาตรฐานสากลเนาะที่ได้รับการรับรองนะจากหน่วยงานภาครัฐแล้วก็เป็นการแสดงความเชื่อมั่นว่าเป็นอาหารที่มีความปลอดภัยค่ะ
แต่ก่อนนะคะเราเป็นแม่ค้าคนกลางขายสาหร่ายพวงองุ่นแต่ว่าหลังจากที่เราเป็นแม่ค้าคนกลางมาระยะหนึ่งเนี่ยเรารู้สึกว่าสาหร่ายพวงของเราไม่พอเพราะว่าออเดอร์ของเราเพิ่มขึ้นเราก็เลยมาคิดว่าเราจะควรที่จะเพาะเลี้ยงเองค่ะก็จะมีประมงชายฝั่งธนบุรีเนี่ยค่ะเป็นพี่เลี้ยงให้กับเราค่ะหลังจากที่เราเลี้ยงสาหร่ายพวงองุ่นนะคะก็มีโครงการเพาะเลี้ยงสาหร่ายผักกาดทะเลเข้ามาเราก็ได้เอาสาหร่ายผักกาดทะเลเข้ามาเลี้ยงในฟาร์มสาหร่ายพวงของเราด้วยเพื่อเพิ่มความหลากหลายให้กับฟาร์มของเราแล้วก็เป็นตัวเลือกของลูกค้าค่ะสำหรับสาหร่ายผักกาดทะเลของเราอะค่ะเราจะขายแบบสดนะคะอยู่ที่กิโลละ500 บาท1 เดือนเราจะผลิตได้ประมาณ 20-25 กิโลค่ะฟาร์มเราก็จะมีส่วนสร้างรายได้ให้กับชาวบ้านในชุมชนนะคะสำหรับคนในพื้นที่อะค่ะเราก็จะให้เขามาคัดเลือกเก็บสาหร่ายแล้วก็คัดแยกค่ะรวมถึงกระบวนการทำความสะอาดต่างๆในฟาร์มของเราค่ะซึ่งเขาก็จะมีรายได้จากตรงนี้ด้วยค่ะเราหวังว่าในอนาคตสาหร่ายผักกาดทะเลจะเป็นที่รู้จักของคนมากขึ้นทุกกลุ่มทุกเพศทุกวัยค่ะ
เราเลือกทำสาหร่ายผักกาดทะเลเพราะว่ามีการแนะนำจากของกรมประมงแล้วเราก็เหมือนได้เรียนรู้ข้อมูลไปกับประมงไปเรื่อยๆครับแล้วก็มองเห็นแล้วว่าในตัวสาหร่ายผักกาดทะเลครับไม่ได้แค่อร่อยอย่างเดียวแต่เขามีประโยชน์มากมีโปรตีนสูงมากกว่าไข่ไก่ครับตั้งแต่เราได้ของสวก.เข้ามาช่วยครับเราก็คือได้เพิ่มกำลังการผลิตขึ้นไปอีกเดือนละเกือบ20 กิโลเลยทีนี้เราก็เหมือนได้แก้ไขปัญหาในเรื่องของที่เรายังส่งลูกค้าไม่พอแล้วก็ยังได้ตลาดใหม่ๆเพิ่มโอกาสใหม่ๆที่เราจะสามารถขายได้เพิ่มขึ้นส่วนของฟาร์มเองครับตอนนี้ยังทำแต่เป็นสาหร่ายผักกาดทะเลสดเพราะว่ากลุ่มลูกค้าของเราตอนนี้เป็นกลุ่มลูกค้าร้านอาหารโรงแรมนะครับส่วนมากจะใช้แบบสดมากกว่าแบบแปรรูปฝากสาหร่ายผักกาดทะเลให้เป็นอาหารที่เป็นอาหารสุขภาพแล้วก็เป็นอาหารที่เป็นทางเลือกของกลุ่มคนหลายๆคนทั้งเด็กผู้ใหญ่ฝากไว้ด้วยครับผมขอบคุณครับ
Okay, this is the first video to show the success case of that we promotion, and This figure show you that the seaweed production is highly concentrated in Asia, where China is the top producers, and seaweed cultivation is not only support and aligned with the UN SDG goals and also FAO Blue transformation, but it's also served to support the Thailand national goal that we plan to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and also to the net zero by 2065. And so this seaweed can absorb carbon dioxide as well as support bioeconomy and low carbon industrial. This data reflect that Thailand has a growing demand for seaweed in food, cosmetic, industrial application, but it also highlight that we have a high opportunity to produce domestic production and value-added processing within the country. This timeline shows you the seaweed cultivation in Thailand and the role of Department of Fisheries to develop of seaweed. We have 3 phases of development during 2013. We first launched the project to extend seaweed to the farmers, and by 2014 is the first time in Thailand that we can success in establish commercial sea grape seaweed farms in Thailand. During these 4 years, we training and also extend the knowledge, coaching for the farmers, and also do like a business model to promote and help the consumer to extend the market for the consumer. During 2017 up to 2022, we developed GAP or seaweed gap, and we also initiate the agricultural standards, good aquaculture practice for seaweed farm. And by 2022, we obtained around 28 farms that get the certifications of seaweed standards. During 2023 up to 2025, we continue to training the farmers as well as the marketing, focusing on seaweed culture, GAP certification, post-harvest management in order to ensure the confidence of the consumer and also to ensure the consistency of productivity. And during 2025, we established the new species, sea lettuce or Unva lactuca. This show you the vision of DOF on the seaweed cultivation. We do research and development, biological studies, business promotion, farmers engagement, monitoring production process, academic support, technology transfer, providing for analytical service for water quality as well as seaweed standards. And for the situation of seaweed culture in Thailand, we produce the limit production, but we focus on niche market and high value aquaculture production. So we use mainly for human consumption. The major seaweed species may be different from the industrial. We develop major species is Cassilaria, Colopa, and Unva or sea lettuce. And for the production each year is still very low. However, we have the various production from simple processing up to sophisticated or high level of production. And this is show you that for the farm that register to the Department of Fisheries. However, we have the other farm that they are not registered. So nowadays, almost 10 years, from 3 farms at the beginning, we have more than 100 farms, cover more than 600 right, and production from 20 tons a year up to more than 1,000 tons a year, with the value from 200,000 baht up to 40 million baht a year now. This is just for fresh seaweed that they are for consumption. We still have gap that we can make value add more to produce for the cosmetic in the other processing product. And this is some major province that we have the seaweed activities along the coast of Thailand. And this did show you that the major province that had farmings of 3 the species of seaweed. As I told you before that we have now almost 30 certificate seaweed farms. And we, on the right hand of the graph, we show you that from 2020, from 300 tons of seaweed and with the value of 16 million baht a year, now we obtain more than 1,000 tons from 2023 with the value of more than 40 million baht a year. And this is have the around 700 person in this value chain, and also they can earn like a 16,000 baht up to 2 million baht per farms per year, and in average they obtain 40,000 baht per farms. And this shows you that we have three systems of seaweed culture. For the earthen pond, at the beginning, when we promote for the sea grave or Colupa lentilifera in Phetchaburi, we produce it in earthen pond. And we also have the post-harvest system that we use innovation of simple protein skimmer system to clean it and to make it a high value for the consumer. And for the indoor mostly is in Andaman and also in the eastern part of Thailand, like Chanthaburi, because they have fluctuate of salinity of the water, so they use the culture is in the indoor. And sea cage, this is the IMTA is in Krabi, that they produce seaweed in the cage culture together with the marine fish like a grouper or sea bass. This is show you the Royal Demonstration Farm. This is the first farm that is the we extend the technique from the Center of Department of Fisheries to the Royal Sea Farm project, and we have from the 7 farms under the Royal Sea Farm project extension, and nowadays they can and extend to more than 50 farms in the Phetchaburi province only. And we can show you that seaweed not only for the production, but it's also for environmental management, and this can be to improve the water quality. We produce seaweed together with the culture of the aquatic species. And this is we developed the post-harvest system, as I told you before, that we use the simple protein skimmer to clean the seaweed, and we can sell it like 150 baht up to 300 baht per kilograms. This is for wholesale price, but for retail price they can sell like 100 gram per 100 baht. So it means that they can obtain 1,000 up to 1,500 baht per kilograms. And this also the indoor system for produce the Coropa, and this is the new species Unva lactuca. We can use it as the human consumption as well as to the ingredient for culture of Panamai shrimp as well. And this is cultivation of Cassilaria in the south, and also they can culture together with the soft shell crab. This is I show you the value chain and the market of Thai seaweed. We start from strain selection, and the Department of Fisheries officer do heavily training, and also give the knowledge to the farmers, and we teach them about cultivation method to ensure the efficiencies and safety of the product. And also we develop the final product as the prototype for the farmers and for the communities. After that, they can produce various products, and we can sell either in Thailand or international. And this is the show you the collaboration of the Department of Fisheries with private sector, academic, and also for the funding either international or national. And this is make the ecosystem for the development of seaweed in Thailand, and make us have today that we can success in several area of Thailand. And this is show you the various products from seaweed, from the simple one up to the cosmetic, and also for the several products. And now we success in develop the extract from the Coropa, and we will use this innovation to add on to develop cosmetic, and it also can help to prevent from the PM 2.5 as well. And this is at the beginning that we promote the coropa. So we need to how to say, educate for the consumer, because for Thailand we are not familiar with the seaweed, and so we try to teach them how to consume it, how to eat. So this is the simple menu that can reach to the consumer. So in conclusion, for the seaweed cultivation in Thailand, although we grow steadily, but consistently, and sustainability with the strong support from Department of Fisheries and for the Alliance, and it has great potential for sustainable economic and as well as environmental benefits. So in Thailand now we continue to develop of the seaweeds as the high value products, and also in the nature-based solution as well. This is for on from Thailand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pam, for the very much insightful overview on the seaweed situation in Thailand. So far, I didn't see any questions from the chat box. Then I would like to encourage the audience, if you have any questions to Pam, we can take at least one or two short questions. Maybe Sanam, you can type it on the Q&A section here.
Yes, please type it down.
Yeah.
Do not raise your hands, but we need to read your questions before we give you a spot to ask the question.
Their question, maybe I can start first. From your opinion, what has been the biggest non-technical barrier to scaling up seaweed in Thailand? Is there any?
Sorry, again, please.
Yeah, just wondering if there's any obstacles or challenges in terms of non-technical barrier in upscaling seaweed in Thailand.
Oh, the first time is really obstacle because it's very new for them. But what we do is we do like a coaching with the farmers, and we start from the small amounts of farm first. After that, and we do very heavy training. I think every month there are a lot of the farmers come to train with us, and we do by coaching. But now after that, now the farmers, they have a skill, and in every province, different context, they will how to say, we will introduce different species in order to make it suitable for different context. For example, Unfa is suitable for the Chantaburi, but for Coropa, the farmers, they say that they prefer to growing Coropa because they're more familiar, and also for the zoning, like environmental water quality. We do also select the suitable species for the suitable of the climate and also the geographical. And this will help us a lot. And also for the innovation, we do the simple one first, like a simple protein skimmer. So if they take care, not take too much time to take care, so it's easy for them to accept the technology. And after that, we collaborate with the academic to make the advanced innovations or advance the machine to help for the farmers that they already are upgrade to the next level. Okay.
Thank you. I can see there's one question from analyst. Thank you for the very nice presentation. The question is, will the seaweed also be integrated with other farm species currently implemented in Thailand?
Yes, we do, like for example, for the Royal Sea Farm project, they do like a very like a big farm. they integrate with several species, like but not in the same pond. Like they can culture together with sea bass or milkfish, as well as like sea crab, mud crab, but in different ponds. For the mud crab, they can produce in the same pond. So now we also do IMTA in Thailand.
And another question from Sophie from Ghent University Malaysia. What are the initiatives used by Thailand to encourage local to be involved in the seaweed farming?
Sorry, again, please.
Okay, what are the initiatives used by Thailand to encourage local people, okay, the community, to be involved in the seaweed farming?
Yeah, because like you see in the clip, for example, for the UNFA, at that time I go to be director at the Kungaben Bay, and they get the crisis from the COVID. The income they reduce like 100 or 1,000 baht per month only. So we introduce the seaweed to them, help them to improve several products, and now they earn like 100,000 a month, or even up to 1 million baht a year. And this is the good example. That's why the local. So it means that we understand them, we know their problem, and we select or take the technique or take the knowledge that's suitable for their problem. And this is will be encourage them to develop and to obtain this seaweed as their career and their income.
Thank you, Pam. Unfortunately, that's the only time that we have now. So I'm passing the mic to Dorinde for the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Natrah.
Thank you.
Okay, herewith it's my pleasure to introduce to you Rui Pereira. He's director of the Center for Innovation in Macroalgae at A4F in Portugal. And he will be presenting the INNOAQUA demonstration site in Portugal, where the production of sol and macroalgae is combined in a land-based IMTA approach. Rui, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Dorine. Excuse me. Thank you, Dorine. Excuse me. My throat is a little bit sore, but I'll try to speak as best as possible.
Good luck.
Let's see. Can you see my presentation or now?
I see your screen, but not in full mode yet.
Should be coming up. Not yet.
Not yet.
I'm going to try again.
You see completely frozen now.
Like I see.
Okay. Well, let's hope that he gets connection back soon. Okay, I guess Rui is completely out, so maybe we should move to the next presentation. So Natrah, I'll give the word to you to introduce them.
Okay, then let's move to the next presenter. Again from Southeast Asia, we have Dr. Nguyen Nhut. He is the senior researcher at the Research Institute for Aquaculture No. 2 or RIA2. And he will share his experiences on developing intensive white shrimp culture through IMTA-RAS with a focus on climate adaptation and circular economy approaches. So Dr. Nhut, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, so I talk a little bit about my name. My name is from Maria too. So that I did the project for the Mekong Delta. So we already know in traditional intensive farming, the people always to discharge nutrient out, go to the water body to make pollution, also for disease occurrence in Mekong Delta barely. That's why did the project to need to think in how we have a solution to reduce the nutrients, also for increase biosecurity in the traditional shrimp farming. We thinking we have did so many solutions, even for modern recirculation system, but it's very high average cost. That is why we use the IMTA-RAS system. You see that in the shrimp fish, the composition, you see that the protein that are almost 30–45% for intensive farming, but also shrimp solid waste 10–80%. Yes.
We cannot see the presentation in the presenter mode.
Really?
Yes.
Can you see?
Not yet. Maybe if you can click on that icon where it's your mouse.
Again.
I hope that the Nhut is still there. Nhut, you can just click the icon there.
If there is a problem, I can also share the presentation on my end, and then you just tell me when I have to move the slides. I think we lost Nhut.
Maybe while waiting for Nhut to re-enter, Anna, maybe can share the presentation first?
Yes. Can you see it?
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay. Dr. Nhut, are you here? Yeah, I think we lost him. Should we go back to Rui again?
I don't see Rui yet joining
okay.
us.
Should we jump all the way to Pia?
Maybe.
Pia,
yes,
are you ready in there?
Okay, I will stop sharing.
I try sharing, right, to see.
Yes, if you try. Okay, well, while you start sharing, I'll introduce you. Because I can say that Pia is my dear colleague here at NORCE. She's a senior researcher, and she will be presenting the other INNOAQUA demonstration site in Norway, where we integrate the production of salmon and microalgae combined in a land-based IMTA approach. So yeah, Pia, we see your slides all well, so go ahead.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Dorinde. Then I'm just going to jump right into it. So aquaculture is a very important industry in Norway. Norway is the world's largest producer of farmed Atlantic salmon and also one of the largest seafood exporters in the world. And the yearly salmon production in 2022 was about 1.5 million tons. And the ambition is to increase this production to 5 million tons by 2050. But also this production should be sustainable. And today, most of the salmon cultivation is performed in open net pens in coastal fjords, as you can see in this picture, which poses environmental challenges as large amounts of fish waste products are being released into the environment. And that are mainly dissolved ammonium and solid fish sludge, which is a combination of fish feces and feed leftovers. So therefore, more and more efforts are being made towards using closed land-based cultivation alternative, such as recirculating aquaculture systems, or short RAS. So those systems allow a great degree of water recirculation and reuse, as different filtration steps remove the sludge from the water and also convert the ammonium, which in high concentrations can be toxic to the fish, to nitrate. Now, in order to also prevent the strong accumulation of the nitrate in the water, these systems also have a daily water exchange rate of about 1 to 5%. Now, although this water exchange rate and also the nitrate concentration in the water is rather low, if you have many of these large fish production systems, the amount of discharged water becomes actually very high, and with that also the total amount of nitrate. And if this water is being released into the environment, a valuable resource gets lost, and it can also contribute to eutrophication of the recipient water body. But if this water would be used for microalgae cultivation, the nitrate would be removed from the water, as the microalgae would use the nitrate to grow. And at the same time, we would create a valuable product, because the microalgae biomass can be valorized into a feedstock for different commercial products, such as food, feed, or supplements. So our ambition was to develop and test such a combined cultivation system of salmon and microalgae. And in order to have an efficient system where large amounts of water can be treated and also enough nitrate provided to have high microalgae productivities, we wanted to use perfusion cultivation for that, which is not a very common cultivation method for microalgae, especially at this scale. So with perfusion cultivation, you have a constant inflow of your growth media, in this case the RAS water, and a constant outflow of the nutrient-depleted water of the system, while the microalgae cells are being retained in the cultivation vessel by a special filter. So the RAS that we used for this was one of these 2,500 liter pilot scale systems producing Atlantic salmon. So in the front, you can see the tank, which would contain the fish, and in the back are the different treatment steps of the recirculating water. And now, during the life cycle of the salmon, the salinity of the water switches from fresh water for the young fish to brackish water and finally salt water for the adult salmon. So in order to be able to grow microalgae during a whole fish production cycle, we chose 3 different microalgae species that could grow at the respective salinities. And that was chlorella for the freshwater phase, Phaeodactylium for the brackish water phase, and Nanochloropsis for the saltwater phase. So as a next step, we placed a 25-liter photobioreactor next to the RAS unit. And this was a tubular bioreactor where the culture is being circulated through these tubes by an airstream. And it has LED lights on both sides of the tubes, and also an on-demand CO2 supply. And here you have a schematic overview on how this integrated cultivation was performed. So the water from the RAS tank containing the nitrate was continuously pumped into the lower part of the reactor via a filtration cascade, which would remove particles and bacteria. Now, in order to also provide all the other essential nutrients for microalgae, like phosphate and micronutrients, which were either absent or low in the RAS water, they were added to an extra tank, which was then fed into the ingoing RAS stream. Now, in the reactor, reactor, the RAS water would circulate through the tubes together with the culture, and the nutrients would be consumed by the microalgae. And then at the top of the reactor, the culture was pumped into the filtration unit, which is this one here on the picture. And this filtration unit was vibrating very fast, as you can see, which would prevent that the microalgae would clog the membrane. And yes, so in this filtration unit, the culture was divided into two streams. One stream contained the microalgae cells, which would be returned into the reactor. And the other one was the cell-free and nutrient-depleted water, which was constantly removed out of the system. And then in order to maintain a stable biomass concentration in the reactor, the culture was also continuously harvested, with the pump rate here being set to be equal to the growth rate of the microalgae. And the total amount of RAS water that was flowing through the culture was 75 liters per day. And this experiment was performed 3 times. As I said, once for chlorella during fresh water, once for Phytoculum during brackish water, and once for Nanochloropsis during salt water. And each experiment was performed between 10 and 15 days. And the results from these experiments were very promising. So all microalgae species grew very well on the RAS water and also under these perfusion conditions. And we also achieved relatively high biomass concentrations in the reactor, which were also very stable over the course of the experiment. And the fact that the biomass concentration increased from 1 gram per liter for chlorella to 2 grams per liter for Nanochloropsis was due to that the nitrate concentration in the RAS water increased from fresh water to salt water as the larger fish release more nitrogen into the water. And also the nitrate removal from the RAS water was very efficient. Chlorella and Phytoculum removed 100% of the nitrate, so there was no nitrate coming out here anymore. And Nanochloropsis, the removal was 80%. But also here, 100% would be possible by adapting and optimizing some of the cultivation settings. Then we also had a look at the bacterial concentration. So bacteria are generally present in both in the RAS water and also in the microalgae culture, especially at the scale. But we wanted to monitor if there's maybe a strong accumulation in bacteria, which in the long term could impact the microalgae. What we found is that in both the RAS water and in the culture, the bacteria concentration remained relatively low, like at a normal low level, and also stable over time. So this concentration, which we had here in the culture, we would also have in cultures that we grow in the lab. But what we could see was that this filtration cascade actually did not remove the bacteria from the RAS water. So bacteria from the RAS water would also flow into the microalgae culture. And therefore, we also analyzed the bacterial community composition of the RAS water and the microalgae culture in order to see if there were any bacteria from the RAS water that would then establish within the microalgae culture. And on this data, I'm still working on analyzing it, but we do have some first results, which I can maybe elaborate more on later in the discussion part. And then we also looked or did an elemental analysis of the inflowing and the outflowing RAS water, because we wanted to see if there's any heavy metals or toxic metals present in the water, which could accumulate in the microalgae biomass. But these we either did not find, or if they were present in very low concentrations, so below drinking water guidelines, and also the concentrations were very similar between inflowing and outflowing water, which suggests that that the microalgae would not have taken them up. But as such an accumulation can also happen slowly over time. We also took samples from the biomass to analyze for these elements, but these samples still need to be measured. And then finally, we also analyzed the fatty acid composition and the protein content of the microalgae biomass, as we wanted to see if there's any effect on this. But also here, the results were very similar to data that we got from lab-grown cultures. Yes, so these results from this first integrated cultivation trials were very nice and promising. But if we consider scaling such a system further up, we do foresee also quite some challenges. So the system definitely needs some technical improvements and automatization, because so far there was still a lot of manual adjustments of the different settings during the experiments. And it's very important to have this to be a stable system that can basically adapt itself to maybe some fluctuations in the nutrient concentration or microalgae growth. Another challenge will be the biofouling. So we could see after several days the microalgae would start attaching to the tubes, but also to the the filtration membrane here. So we also had to do a lot of cleaning or sometimes replace the membrane. Another thing that needs to be looked at is the economic and environmental impact of such a system and its actually contribution to sustainability. And finally, one challenge that will also come up, or is already there, is the regulations on if this biomass can actually be used for commercial products if it's being grown on RAS water. Yes, thank you. I'm finished with my short summary of our experiments.
Thank you very much, Pia. Is there any questions in the Q&A about technical aspects of this setup? I don't think I see any. So then we'll keep the general questions for the panel debate later. Thank you very much, Pia. And then I'd like to go back to Natrah.
Okay, I hope that the Nhut is back. Nhut, are you here? Just checking.
Yeah, can you hear me? So I cannot
okay.
open my camera, only talking.
It's okay. It's okay. So
Anna
will share
now
your...
I try to show again my presentation again.
It's okay. Anna will share the presentation.
Can you see it?
Yeah. Just need to put it on the presentation mode.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Nhut, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to share today that the topic for development intensive shrimp farming in the Mekong Delta. So that I come from a research institute for aquaculture #2, belong to the government. So the next slide. So we also knew that the traditional intensive shrimp farming, they discharge a lot of nutrients go to the water body, and so to make the evolution also transfer disease between this farm go to another farm. So that's why today Vietnam also lose economy from the shrimp farming. So that a very really challenging in Vietnam today. So that we think in how we have a good solution to farmer and in the commercial scale. So we also understand about the nutrients, nutrient in the shrimp metabolic way. So that around 70% the nitrogen also doesn't use, and also the phosphorus, even the rye matter. You see in my picture, you see no yield from the mineral also, because the people, they use a different method to apply the mineral from the shrimp, and in the morning and after that at night they also discharge out, so never use it. So we have a solution for the farmer. And next step. So that the principle for recirculation system for IMTA, I did that. Look like the one author from the Thailand also mentioned that we found the shrimp solid waste that also high protein can be used, also more soluble waste. Yeah, from urine, ammonia, CO2, also very useful for microalgae as seaweed culture. So that we try to study step by step, and we have a result to build the RAS IMTA system. Next slide. And I also try to compare and have evidence for the farmers. They can use them, our system. You see that the smaller circle, red line, you see that the modern recirculation system, they have so many the equipments also with complication that the design. But when we apply RAS IMTA, similar but cheaper and easy to apply for a farmer. you see that, for example, solid removal by the round filter, but we only use the tilapia for remove the solid waste. That's okay. And even we use the seaweed look like biofilter for the circulant system, that we are not only for to keep good water quality, we also get back the income from the seaweed. And next line. And that really we also found so many functions of some core species. In Vietnam, we choose tilapia because tilapia can reduce the bacteria in the water column. Already report some in the world, and also they control cyanobacteria. They also eat the trichas like Tdap, and we apply Gallardophloria, that because that easy to culture in Vietnam and a high biomass, so that can remove CO2, and also they can improve the water quality very well. And similar to Glaciolaria, we also apply it. So that means the system included species, the main species, white shrimp, and of course species tilapia, and also the red seaweed and green seaweed. Next slide. And next slide, that because I only studied some species more easy beginning for apply for farmer, but actually we have so many species to select it for co-combination for RAS IMTA look like in the picture, topical species. Next slide. And you also see some plant also can interact it with shrimp farming, but I only choose the seaweed because seaweed in the Vietnamese government also would like to develop seaweed production in the future. Next slide. So what is different between IMTA and the RAS IMTA? Normally, the people only study in one pond, so many species, so very difficult to control disease, control the quality, and different to control the production, because different kind of species here. So they're very difficult to convince the farmer to apply for industrial. So we separate 30 of the pond. Each the pond they place different the pro like shrimp unit and fish unit and microalgae units, so the circular system like that. That is more easy to application. Next one. So the next one, I also compare between the how traditional in Vietnam to do intensive farming. You see in the about the picture, you see so many sunny pond. But the shrimp culture unit only 10 to 5 area of the land culture. But in RAD IMTA, we increase the land for shrimp culture pond to 45, so that we also integrated with seaweed become to look like the circular system. The completely don't need to discharge slur, don't need to do the biogas. Then more complication also. More emission. We did that for conversion, shrimp metabolic weight become to values the product. Next slide. That's you can see that the real picture from our pilot before. We have 4 ponds, intensive pond, and also we also have a bioflux, the pond for treatments not before. And that automated to pump to tilapia pond and go to another seaweed pond. And finally, we only use the simple pump recirculating the water, go back the shrimp like this. And next slide. That's so we not before we start up for research, but now we can transform between the traditional pond people. They use a lot of water for discharge daily day. So how we transit, how we can transit from traditional shrimp farming go to RAD IMTA system. We have to do before you see that a picture. Before that, they only use 4 cycle the pond for shrimp culture, but when we change we can use 5 ponds. That means more benefit, and the area of the shrimp increase 60%. And that's like, so again, that really now we choose that only for species for integrated with all the shrimp farming now. Next slide. That you can see this. You can see this, that the tilapia pond look like intensive tilapia culture, and we mixing with the mullet fish, because eat the species, they can eat the sedimentation different particle size. So we mixing. We also apply the aeration for them. And next slide, please. So you see that how the shrimp, how the microalgae integrated with the IMTA-RAS system. You see very high biomass in the pond. I make the zigzag liner like this. You see red seaweed a lot, and we also apply deep pond. Look like we hand the red seaweed. Next. Yeah, that's the film you can see. The people very deep on, so we cannot survive. But so we modify the method to integrate it with shrimp by the net. Next slide. So that's a very interesting the result. You see that the water quality in the RAS system, we have optimal level for main coast species and also coast species. Then next slide. So that the raw birth from, this is very important, significant for convene the people together to do commercial industry. That 1 hectare, 1 pond, we did the case study. We feed 30 tons so that they can generate 12 tons for wild shrimp production. But the wild from 12 tons, they generate metabolic waste, so we can recover 2.5 ton fish and 6 ton for seaweed. And you go to next like that. And we also show you that indicator for sustainable. Look like you see that when we compare with traditional pond and also IMTA, the actually shrimp production are much higher than, and also very high reliability in the RAS system IMTA compared with traditional farming, and survival also higher and growth rate higher. Especially you can see that shrimp harvest very red color that they adapt with the high value markets with when we interacted with IMTA, so the shrimp more red, but below the picture, you see that the normal intensive farming, they use flow-through system, so the shrimp, the quality not really red. You can see that. And the next slide. So that we also evaluate natural resources utilization in the RAS IMTA, and which compared to traditional system, you see that the land use also we use better, and feed also feed conversion rate also lower, and water use much significant to low compared to traditional, and also another indicator like energy use, and also the number bot larvae used for 1 kg shrimp also use lower than the traditional, because special I use 40 animal per kg, but traditional in Vietnam they use 107 animal per kg shrimp harvest. That is why, because in the traditional pond always the problem with the diseases. Next slide. And environment impact really see directly, because we did not to discharge the water, so the nitrogen phosphorus very low compared to traditional pond. And next slide. basically, we also calculated with the life cycle assessment how the CO2 emission from the RAS IMTA, and compared to traditional, you see the RAS IMTA only produce emission nearly 2 kilogram CO2 equivalent to about 1 kilogram shrimp produced, and traditional nearly 5. Next slide. And social economy. You see the economies in the all the IMTA's RAS system, we calculate the income, total income come from the shrimp, not come from the core species, 94% from the shrimp, and but actual income from the core species, we calculate that 9.4% total income. I think that the value will be changed. We have a time, and we can optimize value core species in the future. Now with that, we are doing it. We also integrated with the hybrid roofer. They also very good survival, but not reported in here. And especially you see that the cooperation cost between the RAS IMTA and also the international very different between, because in that much lower than a traditional park. Next slide. That all the picture from our project activity. But 2024 we implement so only 70 hectares. But to 2025 we have achieved 300 hectares. That means the farmer they convince them they do it. That means very efficiency. Very high efficiency, so they follow. But 2026, 2027, our plant need to get 1,000 hectares. Now we are doing it. In Camo, in future, the government plant they should apply the system 10,000 hectares. Next slide. Okay, that is some activity from the government. And we also opened more than 30 workshops for farmer, and we directly to teach a farmer, and also another feed company to join with us to append the project. Next slide. Okay, that after do that, we have some challenges. So we would like to recommendation. We continue to select the high value cooperation culture species and the seaweed, different seaweed, and a high improve high economies. So that we also the problem with seaweed health, we need to manage well together with the shrimp, because sometimes seaweed in the shrimp farming also die. So we also trouble with the seaweed breeding, like technology for seaweed seed production. Vietnam, we don't have that technology for commercial. That is problem. Today we also thinking how we can produce the seed production. And basically, we did not study detail on the biodiversity. We need to do that in the future. And our target that depend in the recirculation system IMTA for the whole Mekong for climate change adaptation, and also approach economies, circular economy for the Mekong. Next. Okay, so that I also work with the company, the private company. Now we also ready to application, ready to would like to cooperation with all the organization to research and application in the future. And the next slide. So finally, I would like to thank your listening. And any question to me?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nhut. So we have 3 questions from Patrick. Okay. Wait, okay. Right. So Patrick asked what you mean with need for more biodiversity research. Can you just clarify on that? And then also, is tilapia and mullet is being cultured in the same pond?
Yes, the biodiversity we need to evaluate because today there's so many certificates and global certificates. They also need to show diversity in the system. We know the big organization like fish, like seaweed already, but the microorganism level we did not to find that. So that we need to find why the shrimp have good health in the IMTA system, because I think that diversity of organism very important in that system. We need to identify not only for marketing like ASC credits. We also need to know why shrimp in IMTA system develop very well, and also roll rate high and high survival. That's a principle we need to study in future. And the a second question, the first we do that tilapia and also mullet together one pond, because DT we would like to maximum the health the fish can consume different particle size. Normally, that tilapia also can consume the similar with the mollusk, but the mollusk more tolerant with low oxygen. That's very important. And another reason I did the culture like because tilapia when the salinity increase in the rice season, maybe also double with the tilapia, but with the mollusk, it's okay with them. They can tolerate very high salinity, also very low salinity.
Okay. So another question from Rui, because we see in your system you have also a seaweed, Cladophora. Other than harvesting it and also selling it as a raw seaweed, do you have any other application, or are you in terms of harvesting it as other products?
Yes, that's very nice. That our project also see that the composition of the seaweed, and we also made about it, and we also apply for Bangladesh diet. That's a very good result. Feed conversion rate is very low, but that's not because the long regeneration, but I cannot to tell them. And seaweed, the red seaweed, we also use for humans like agar. But with me, I would like to do that material for another industry like only seaweed powder, so they can use seaweed powder. They can apply for animal feed, our feed, also for another industry better, because if you do deeper, so maybe carbon emission may be high, because if you extract a nutrition from them, so that so many equipment, sometimes so many CO2 emission if we do that industry. So that I only talking with the farmer, and also company only do the right powder.
Okay, and I'll take the last question from the chat box. With these encouraging results in Vietnam on RAS IMTA, so do you see more farmers adopting such approach in shrimp farming in near future? And in terms of investment, do you think there's a need to upgrade or improve shrimp farms from traditional to RAS IMTA system per hectare of production areas?
We already compare the production from the traditional farming and also RAS IMTA. We indicated the higher production and also short production cycle, and so many things are more benefits. That's why old Vietnamese farming, they like to apply this one. But basically today in Vietnam, we have trouble with the microalgae diseases. So if the people, they check out and another farm also come to get in the water, so become to transmission the disease. And that is serious today. So people, they would like to recirculate system for prevent disease occurrence.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nhut. So I'll pass the screen to Dr. Dorinde.
Thank you very much. Then we try to go back to Rui Pereira from A4F. Hope now everything works out with.
Let's see now. Sorry for that.
No worries, no worries.
Technology. It was fine this morning, right?
And it's always like that. The general trial goes great. Real life, not so much.
Okay. Are you able
we
to
see your screen?
Ready?
Yeah.
Presentation mode?
Yes, perfect. Thanks so
okay.
much.
Fingers crossed. Let's go. Thank you, everybody, again, for the patience and for being there. So far, great presentations. I'm also enjoying that part. So as Dorinde explained, as also you've seen from Pia, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about our demo 2 in INNOAQUA. That's the main role that A4F has been taking in the INNOAQUA project. Just a brief slide to present you A4F as a company. We provide service in microalgae, but also in seaweed and in biorefinery and fermentation processing. It's a Portuguese company, but we can actually operate in several parts in Europe and out in the world. We've seen something similar to this already in our first presentation. The main difference here, I wanted to highlight the value of the quota, the importance that algae has in the world aquaculture. The main difference is in this value here, because in this case, I represent only the share of the seaweed that represents in terms of aquaculture. So the percentage is actually higher than the 70% that we see in our first presentation. And if you consider only aquaculture production, the weight of the algae production, it's actually 28%, so very meaningful. But what is most of the times out of the vision of the people working in aquaculture, and even in seaweed or in algae, is that all this production actually comes only from a very limited number of seaweed genera or seaweed species, if you want. So if you see there in the table, red and brown algae represent actually more than 97 or 98% of production. But even more important, if you dive with more detail into those brown and red algae, we see that only a few genera and species of algae represent all that. There's very little, for instance, on green algae, and very little on biodiversity, let's say, of seaweed represented in world aquaculture of algae. And the general idea is that there are more than 12,000 species of seaweeds already identified in the world, and we are exploiting only a very small group. So my point here, there are plenty of species of seaweed in this particular case to explore, to select from, and to optimize culture and production, okay? And I think it's important for emerging, like I call it emerging seaweed producers, and that's the case of most companies, for instance, in Europe, because we've been utilizing algae and seaweed a lot, but they've not been producing it. So in terms of production, we are really an emerging sector here in Europe. But I think it's important not to compete with current major producers in Asia, namely China and Korea and so on that you mentioned before. And this requires differentiation through technology. We have to do it slightly different, or through species, producing something that is not produced elsewhere with different conditions, most of the times also with lower production costs and so on. So in terms of culture conditions or aquaculture technologies, basically divide these into sea-based production technologies and land-based production technologies, okay? Most of what is producing these days in the world is sea-based, are the kelp or the pyropia or even gracillariae, even though today we've seen already some examples of gracillariae producing earthen ponds, but there are also production out in the sea. We are focusing in this demo too in technologies that have to do with land-based, most particularly with outdoors, not earthen ponds, but what we call customized photobioreactors, different kinds of tank systems. The differences you see here, but the main difference I would highlight is that this technology allows a unit to operate on a smaller scale. So we not necessarily need hectares or thousands of hectares to start a production unit and become profitable and sustainable, okay? This is because it can actually be more intensive in terms of production. And of course, it allows, in terms of comparison with sea-based production, higher control, specialization of the product, both in terms of seaweed that we can work, species that we can work with, but also in terms of quality and changes in the biochemical composition, but also allows life cycle control or vegetative propagation. Most of the times, the seaweed or the species that you have to produce in sea-based, you actually need to control the full life cycle. That's the case of the pyropia. In the case of the kelp, we need to alternate between one stage and the other. But in the case of land-based systems, they are very suitable for species that allow for vegetative propagation. We saw this example today with ulva being produced in Thailand, Gracilaria, I'm sure it's the same. And most important, and that's the point that brings us to demo 2, I think these kind of systems are very adequate for synergies with other sectors, namely, of course, with the fish aquaculture and the establishment of IMTA systems. I bring you also some examples of land-based systems that operate these days around the world. Okay, this is the example of a seaweed farm that works in IMTA coupled with Abalone farm. This is South Africa example. Blue Evolution is a Mexican company, also working in IMTA, but also as a standalone seaweed aquaculture, namely for ulva. Sicura from Israel, Alga Plus from Portugal, Aeronova in France, Green Aqua, another Portuguese company, and Pure Algae, a Danish company. They actually have a system that allows for the production of seaweed totally indoors in modular systems that they can then move around and install in different areas. Again, try to create synergies with other companies. But one thing that all these technologies have in common is that they need, I think, a certain layer of support from technology. And this layer of technology support is what we're trying to add at our demo 2. These are blueprints of our demo 2, but it's actually now up and running. But we're basically, in this demo 2, we're basically using rectangular, open, free flow tanks for the production of seaweed. And our main targets are, at the moment, ulva and gracilaria. So the species are familiar for you that are listening. And the main target KPIs for these units is, and I think they are relevant, is the productive area. It is very large compared with other projects and other pilot units that have been tried in previous years. 40 cubic meter per hour maximum capacity of handling in terms of water coming from the fish farm. We aim at reducing 30% of N and P, which is already a very ambitious number, I say, but we'll work for that. And you see there the average production per month that we want to achieve. Just to highlight, this unit will be receiving water from our partner at INNOAQUA C8. It's a company which lives in Portugal and in Spain. 4 different units, 3 grow-out units, 1 in Portugal, 2 in Spain. They produce a few thousand tons of salt per year, and our unit is actually attached to their maternity. This unit here in Portugal produces 2.5 million small juveniles that then they used to grow out in their other facilities. So just to let you know that it's a very sensitive unit for them because of the biological risks of using water. So at the moment, or part of the work of INNOAQUA is actually to prove, similar to what Pia described, it's prove them that the water is safe for reuse. So one thing is to treat the water and make it cleaner and better for discharge into the environment. Another thing is to be able to prove that they are able to actually reuse the water in a safe and meaningful way. So the technology, I will not go into very much detail about this, also because it's a part of the system that I do not master so well, because everything has to do more with the sensoring, the development of sensors. We're not trying to exactly reinvent the wheel here. We're trying to adopt technology that is already there for control of production of microalgae, for control of production of plant plants, plant crops in aquaponics and so on. But we need to adapt these to the reality and the needs of the seaweed production. And in the case of the module system, or the sensoring system, there are some things that really need to be developed and adapted to our system. Because, for instance, nitrate and ammonium sensors are very common. Most of them do not work very well with salt water. That is something that needs to be improved, and is part of the work our partner in ESTEC. Most of these systems also are not prepared to work continuously, 24/7, giving real-time data. This is another thing that they are working in. But basically, this layer will actually be working together with our systems, recording information, giving actuation orders to valves to open and to close, in order to control the production system in a more automated way and not so dependent on human action of human experts. Because we need to remember, we are installing these units. That's the aim of the INNOAQUA project. It's to demonstrate that it is possible to install this kind of units in fish farms, in companies that do not necessarily have an algae expert working in there. Algae is not their core businesses and may never be. So if we want them to adopt this kind of systems, we need to give them the tools and the capacity to be able to manage and control this unit without becoming an expert, at least not from the first day. So there are two components here. One that's in the actual terrain, the sensors and the actuators, and another layer of technology is all these days in the cloud, where all the data will be stored, treated, and eventually used for forecasting and help managing the production in terms of harvesting methods, harvesting times, growing periods, and conditions like stocking density, and these kind of systems, this kind of characteristics. These are actually real pictures of our system. We just inoculated the system last month, actually in December, mid-December. We see that, as in the blueprint, we have a few rectangular, circular tanks, that we use for the scale up. And then we have these large rectangular tanks. The largest ones have up to a little more than 10 cubic meters per unit. And these are the ones that we actually consider the production units that can then be scaled up if we are successful. This is just a small picture of the previous version of the sensory model of INESC. Inside this box, we actually have different kinds of sensors, namely for the nitrate, for turbidity, and so on, pH, and the regular things. The technology has the system pumping samples of water continuously from an inlet tube, and then discharging this very small volume of water being pumped from the tank continuously, or at the frequency that we would like it to have. It may not be continuous, but maybe a sample every hour or so. But this is the kind of equipment, and they are developing in order to have us real-time information and data to help for the management. So, as a sum up, I would say, and this is the message that I would like you to take home. Let's say the land-based seaweed aquaculture, I think it's still relatively low-tech facility or technology, let's say. This is not necessarily bad. I think it's a good thing that we can actually install and start a land-based system without the need of having high-tech, because that actually lower the capex and the investment needs, and allows for any farmer, any person, any group of investors to start a unit slowly and growing slowly by slowly. Also, as I said before, it doesn't need to be 1 hectare or something like that. So this is actually a good characteristic of a land-based system. But then, if you want to capture the full potential of these systems, then we need to scale up, of course, and then add some complexity, add some technology, and allows for the exploitation of the full potential of these systems. I think they are suitable for many seaweed species. Most are not yet tested, never been tested. Others are already tested even by not by seaweed farmers, but by actually end users. There's a lot of knowledge, for instance, in the pharma, in the cosmetic sector, of species that they know they are of interest and have compounds of interest, but they don't exploit them because they don't have a source. So if we are able to connect with this kind of information, we will immediately know a lot of species that are potentially applicable in cosmetics or in pharma, but there are many others to be tested. The systems, these land-based systems, also allow for a greater degree of control. I think it's easy to understand that. All the water coming in can be controlled, filtered, sterilized. The level of complexity, it's whatever you want it to be. It can be water directly from the sea or from the fish tanks, but we can actually control a lot of its quality if needed, for instance, for pharma productions or food and for feed. But what I think what we need, it's actually for this technology to become more digital, or like I say in the slide, more user-friendly, so that people from other sectors that would like to treat the water in their system, recirculate the water like in fish farms, but fish farms are not the only example. So that this technology can be adopted by them, we need the whole system, the whole unit to become, like I said, more user-friendly. And the idea of being user-friendly is to help them manage the systems through decision-maker support by technology, software, and all the tools that are available these days. And again, I stress these are tools and knowledge that is already available and used in other sectors of production, namely in agriculture, aquaponics, etc. So we just really need to make the effort to adapt these to the reality and to the needs of the algae and in this case, in particular, the seaweed sector. And this is what I would like you to bring to you today. This is the message, and I thank you again for your attention, and I'll be available for questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rui. I don't see any questions yet in the Q&A, but they tend to come a bit with a delay. So I'm actually suggesting that in the meanwhile, I'm asking Pia questions, and then if there is any questions for you popping up, I'll ask you later.
Sounds good.
For people in the audience, please type your questions in the Q&A for now. Thanks so much. So Pia, some technical questions. Which color of LED light did you use in your algae reactor, and did you use any blue light?
Yeah, we just used regular white light LEDs, so all the colors.
Yeah, perfect, thanks. And also for Pia, was your reactor running for a certain time, and did you clean and start again, or how continuous is it?
Yes, exactly, that's what we did. So, well, we grew it for 10 to 15 days for each species, and then we had to like clean everything, reactors, tubings, connections, and then start again. But
Perfect.
Once one species was running, that was running continuously without cleaning. We just sometimes had to clean like the filtration membrane, like little parts, but the system was still running for the time of the experiment.
Thanks. And for Pia again, what uses are you considering for the algae?
Yeah, so at this point, right, we are just doing experimental work. So we only use the biomass now for analysis and yeah. But like in general, the biomass can be used for products basically wherever it's needed. But the problem with microalgae is that the actual existing market is very like limited to like very high value products such as food supplements, because the production is still very expensive, also under normal production conditions. But if in the future those costs will go down, then there's other markets that could be opening up, such as feed, fish feed, food products, wherever you want to have healthy ingredients.
Thanks. I guess we do have to say that also regulations are still a bottleneck if we do this IMTA-based approach. And last one, can you explain a little bit more on how you investigate the presence of heavy metals and fatty acids?
Yes, so the heavy metals, therefore we did like a elemental analysis, and what we used therefore was a machine that's called ICP-OES, that stands for Inductive Coupled Plasma Optical Emission Spectroscopy. So I don't know the details of this machine, but for the water samples, you can basically use the water and it measures the elements. Then for the biomass, you have to first do an extraction of the biomass, like an acid extraction. So you mix it with acid and heat, and then basically the biomass dissolves, and then you have your elements that you can measure on the machine. For the fatty acids, we collected the biomass and then extracted the lipids, and then those were derivatized into fatty acid methyl esters, and those were then measured on a gas chromatograph.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Pia. Then, Rui, there have appeared some questions for you as well. So first question is, would AI be used for data analysis and decision making in this system in the future? And if the answer is yes, how would this help for production optimization?
Yes, that is part of our plan. Yes, to help that. That's the part of the work that is being working in the cloud system. Let's say. The way we see it, for the start, there's two ways we can manage a system like this. One is to target the production or to give priority to productivity, let's say. So you're not so worried about how much you are reducing in terms of nutrient. You are just focusing on how much seaweed you want to produce. And we believe that after a significant time of historical data being stored and treated by AI, I think we'll be able to start having some notions in terms of modeling and how this information can be used, and then give some directions in terms of how you can target on focusing productivity or how you can targeting on focusing water treatment. So not be worried so much about how much you produce, but what is the quality of the water coming out. So this is a decision that the manager will have to do, and I think we believe AI can have an important contribution to these. Another very good example is that, for instance, not right now, most of the production of this or the processing in the protocols in these kind of units has some kind of fixed time of production. Let's say you harvest your tank every week or every 2 weeks, just because it's practical in terms of organizing your workload during the months. So you set up this kind of frequency, and that's it. Maybe this can change between summer and winter. But again, for practical reasons, you decide that you harvest every Tuesday of the week or every other Tuesday with enough information stored in historical data, but also with some information in real time coming, for instance, from weather forecasts. A software and the artificial intelligence can, for instance, tell you something like, at this point, the software will know that you have a certain amount of seaweed in your system, and this stocking density can eventually be reaching the capacity of the system. But with proper information coming again from weather forecast, the system can tell you that, you know what, you're going to harvest tomorrow, but tomorrow and after tomorrow and after tomorrow, it's going to be very sunny, good weather, enough light to support 1 or 2 additional days of growth. And 1 or 2 additional days of growth at this point, when the stocking density is at maximum, can actually present a significant increase in productivity. So the system can actually advise you to, just wait 1 or 2 days more before you harvest. Instead of doing it on Tuesday, do it on Wednesday and on Thursday. And this seems to be a small detail, but when you're actually building up biomass, and the biomass in these tanks typically grows exponentially, if you harvest 1 or 2 days after what you were planning, you actually be gaining a lot in terms of productivity, significant amount. This is the kind of decision making that AI and the software we believe can help improving the overall efficiency and profitability of the system. So a practical example. I hope I answered your question.
Super, thanks so much. Then another technical question for you. Did you test any red seaweeds in your system?
We didn't. We will try with the Gracilaria. Right now, we are inoculating only with ulva, and we hope that in the next couple of months, the whole system will work with ulva. So the first part of optimizing the system and seeing how much we can target of those KPIs, because ulva will be much more efficient than Gracilaria, for instance, in terms of removal, in terms of its faster growth, and so on. So we will optimize the system, the function of the system with the ulva, also for the software analysis and the part of our partners in ESCTech. But later on in this year, we also tested the system Gracilaria. So this one red seaweed that is part of INNOAQUA. And we hope to be able to try also, because it's the third species that it's a target and objective of INNOAQUA, even though we're not so meaningful in terms of productivity. But we will also work a little bit with Porphyra or Pyropia. But in our case, in Europe, it's actually still Porphyra species that we have so another red seaweed that will work with this system. So Ulva, Gracilaria, and Porphyra, 2 reds.
Perfect, thanks so much. Then there's actually quite a couple of questions coming in on economics and regulatory aspects, but I'll leave those for the panel debate later after all presentations. There was one more technical question for Pia. That was, have you measured the total organic carbon and the dissolved organic carbon? Are these values high? And also, do you have, or can you argue why you choose a tubular system?
Yes. So we did actually measure the dissolved organic carbon in the RAS water and in the microalgae, or like what was coming out of the reactor. And it was very low, actually. It did increase a little bit from freshwater to brackish to salt, but for like a waste stream, normally we find much higher concentrations there. So that's probably also why our bacterial concentrations remained relatively low, because the dissolved organic carbon was quite low. And yes, the second question was why we chose the tubular systems. Yes, so there were reasons. For one, we had it, like we have those systems in our labs, so it was just available to use. But also these systems are actually also used for like on a commercial microalgae scale. So it's easier to translate like how would it work on a larger scale, because that's the systems that are mostly being used. And it's a very efficient system where the microalgae can grow very well.
Perfect, thanks so much. Then I think that's all the technical questions for now. So then I'd like to give the word back to Natrah. Thanks all.
Okay, thank you, Dorinde. So let's move to the last presenter from the Southeast Asian speaker. So we have with us Dr. Wahidatul Husna. She is the senior lecturer at Universiti Malaysia Sabah, and she will present her work on integrating high-value sea urchin and tropical seaweeds into sea-based IMTA system in Malaysia. Handing it to you, Dr. Wahi.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, and we can see the presentation.
All right. So, good morning, everyone. Today I'll be sharing about my presentation on the integration of high-value sea urchins and tropical seaweeds into traditional finfish farming through sea-based IMTA in Sabah, Malaysia. So, my name is Wahida, and I'm from the Borneo Marine Institute, Universiti Malaysia Sabah. All right. So first of all, let me just introduce where is Sabah actually in Malaysia. So Sabah is actually part of the Borneo side, which is next to Sarawak. So our focus studies in Sabah, basically in the east coast of Sabah, which is in Kuna and Semporna, Sabah. So before that, let us just have a look at the overview of the current Malaysian aquaculture scenario. We have for Malaysian aquaculture, we produce up until around 4.5 billion Malaysian ringgit of aquaculture product. So our IMTA focus on the marine finfish, which is the carnivorous finfish, on the sea bass as well as the white pomfret fish, and also integrated with seaweeds and as well as sea cucumber and sea urchins. So for the marine finfish and the seaweed, the aquaculture production are well known in Malaysia, and it's a very commercial and very famous to be conducted in Malaysian aquaculture industry. However, for sea cucumber and sea urchin, it's quite it's still under experimental and research phases, and it's quite new for the aquaculture of both sea cucumber and sea urchin as well. So this is the example of the traditional marine finfish culture in Sabah, especially. We use floating cages to culture the marine finfish, and most of the fish that we cultured are groupers, hybrid groupers as well, and sea bass. So for seaweed, we do cultivation. We do seaweed cultivation using long line system, And for the green seaweed, which is the colopa that I use in the sea-based IMTA system, is normally being wild captured and not really being cultivated so far in Sabah, Malaysia. So for as I mentioned just now, for sea urchin and sea cucumber, it's quite new for the industry. For the sea cucumber as well, normally we do like a community farming or even sea ranching using the seabed pond. And for sea urchin, mostly we use like land-based tanks to culture, but it's still under experimental phases. And most of the sea cucumber or sea urchin are harvested from the wild to be converted to commercial products. So our idea is to shift between traditional monoculture finfish farming into IMTA aquaculture system. So why do we shift to sea-based integrated multi-trophic aquaculture? Is because the problem that we have with the traditional finfish monoculture is that a very high feed costs, and sometimes it becomes a nutrient runoff and the seabed degradation. So we see the opportunity to do integration of the aquaculture of different trophic levels. And we see the opportunity that the demand for sea urchin, sea cucumber, and seaweed is surging nowadays. So we come up with the solution. We propose a solution to have a nature-based aquaculture. Why nature-based? Is because the circular system of the nutrient is close to nature compared to the common aquaculture system that we have nowadays. So we propose the integrated multi-trophic aquaculture, where we wanted to turn the waste from the fish into wealth as nutrients for other species that we cultivated or cultured in the IMTA system. So this is the photo of the sea-based integrated sea-based IMTA that we do in Kunak. So the size of the cage is actually for 5 meters times 5 meters. So this is the overall. We have around more than 20 cages actually we have overall in this pilot study. So this is the overview of the system that we use in the sea-based IMTA. So we have the green seaweed, which is Colopa lentilifera, that is commonly harvested from wild in Sabah. So we attach the fragment of the Colopa lentilifera to the cage net wall. And then we also put the Capophycus alvarezi, which is the red seaweed or the eumatoid, that we normally extract carrageenan from the seaweed species. And we cultured them using a lawn line method. And we place them in the middle of the sea cage. And then we place the finfish, the carnivorous finfish, in the middle of the cage. And we place sea urchin, sea cucumbers, and giant clam at the bottom of the seabed. So this is the overview demonstration of the sea-based IMTA. So what is the mechanism of the sea-based IMTA for 5 meters times 5 meters? So we have the finfish at the main central net. The stocking density is around 10 to 20 fish per meter cube. And the initial size is around 8 to 10 cm. And we target to harvest them within 8, and the longest time is 8 months for the fish. And then for the seaweed, we target to, we use the initial stocking size around 50 gram per culture point and 1 kilo per meter. And the harvesting period is 45 days. For the green seaweed is 30 days, the harvesting period. For the sea urchin around 8 months, sea cucumber 18 months, and the giant clam around 10 months. So this is the pilot, this is the IMTA system that have been conducted as a pilot study in Kunak by the Department of Fisheries and together with the Universiti Malaysia Sabah. All right, so this is just an overview, the different trophic level of the organism that we culture in the sea-based IMTA. For the fish, I'm not sure if you can see the video clearly. This is the type of fish that we culture in the cage, which is the Asian sea bass and the white pomfret. So what happened in the system? The fish will release their waste, and the waste actually become nutrients for the other organisms that we culture within the IMTA. All right, and then this is the video of the different We call them actually extractive organism, where they will extract the nutrients from the waste of the fish. This is the sea cucumber, and then we also have sea urchin at the bottom, as well as the giant clam. All these three species is actually the one that's very common being cultured in Sabah. And last one is actually the seaweed that we place within this sea-based IMTA. So we use long line method to culture the Carpophycus alvarezi. As you can see from the video here, this is the process where we tie the Carpophycus alvarezi on the long line here, and then let's just make it fast forward. I just want to show you this is the example of how we tie the green seaweed, the Colopa lentilifera, on the net wall. Okay, all right. So what is the difference when we compare between the sea-based IMTA and the current finfish monoculture technology? We can see the difference between the nutrient flow, whereby in the finfish monoculture, there's an input. We feed the fish with pellets or commercial pellets, or maybe low trash fish or low cost fish, and then they will produce waste output. However, in sea-based IMTA, it's a circular system where the waste become nutrient for the next organisms. And for the resource efficiency, there's only maybe around 30% of nitrogen in feed being used by the fish. But for IMTA, it's around 80 to 90% of nitrogen is being used by all species with different trophic levels. So these are the differences between these two systems. All right. And then for our pilot study, it's actually ready to be implemented at the commercial level, and whereby the Department of Fisheries have actually run a pilot trials, and it's ready to be demonstrated in the real industry. However, we need to work with the traditional farmers to adopt this technology. What have happened in Kunak, Sabah? The Department of Fisheries have started a showcase farm where the farmers can come to the farm in Kunak and then see the demonstration of the sea-based IMTA system being conducted there. So what are the challenges and recommendations for the sea-based IMTA implementation? The main challenges is how to work together with the community, the farmer, and the policymakers to accept this IMTA implementation. And our recommendations is to have extensive research on IMTA, especially since it's quite a new approach. When we propose the sea-based IMTA to the government, it's quite new for them to digest the information. So we really need a close communication with the policymakers just to have this sea-based IMTA being implemented at the industry level. So to upscale, we also need like a hatchery supply for the seed bank, since as we know, sea urchin and sea cucumber is quite hard to get the seed to start the sea-based IMTA. So we really need like a seed bank for all the different trophic levels organism, including the seaweed. And we also need to have upscaling in terms of modified infrastructure, since we only use pilot study for 5 meters times 5 meters. So there are way more exploratory sizing of the infrastructure that need to be explored in the future, as well as policy support and also the market supply chain that is balanced for the sea-based IMTA products. So as for conclusion, integrating these high-value sea urchins and tropical seaweeds in Malaysia together with the traditional finfish is not only farming, it's actually a zero-waste ecosystem. It's quite sophisticated in terms of technology. And it's actually a diversified investment portfolio because we cultivate different kinds of species at the same time. Even though the harvesting time is different, but we diversified the aquaculture products. All right, so I think that's all from me. I would like to acknowledge the Department of Fisheries Sabah. These three individuals are very important with the project, together with the fish farm that involved with the sea-based IMTA project. That's all. Thank you very much, INNOAQUA project and the team for the opportunity. Thank you very much. And maybe pass to you back, Prof. Natrah.
Thank you, Dr. Waidatul. All right. For now, there's still Yeah, any questions from the Q&A box? But then I have one question actually to you, Dr. Waidatul. Okay, how do you see we can attract communities to actually, move from just a normal sea-based system to IMTA system?
One of the effort actually been ongoing with the University Malaysia Sabah is that we do SEPA effort, the communication, education, and public awareness, where we involve this community with the sea-based IMTA project. We give them awareness and also exposure. What is IMTA, and why do we need IMTA in this aquaculture industry, as well as getting them involved with workshops, dialogues. Since this approach is very new for the community, they need to see examples. Is this really works for the industry, or is it just a theory? Because most of the time, this community, they expect that this is just a theory, because it's very it's a hard work to involve different kind of species within one system. So it's very fussy for them to implement. So what we do is we implement SEPA, which is the communication, giving them information about this IMTA in the first place. And then we educate them, why do we need this nature-based approach? And then we do public awareness together with the community. And actually, we appoint one community as part of the sea-based IMTA project, as we call them champion, local champion for the sea-based IMTA project.
Okay. And last question from Dr. Najia. How much does it cost to set up this sea-based system?
We actually run 5 meters times 5 meter system and estimated around 15,000 ringgit for one system, not including operational costs, maintenance costs, but more or less it's less than 20,000 ringgit for 5 meters times 5 meters. But actually the cost can be reduced once we have more extensive research in the future.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
All right, and then we have another questions. Yeah. Okay, we know that water quality in Sabah is much better than the west part of Malaysia. Can you comment on the application of IMTA in the west part? What kind of species you think are suitable? Is from Dr. Nurhuda.
For the west part, I believe we can do the green seaweed, Kalopa, which is very well known. We can find a lot in the west part. And we can also use sea urchin, which is actually very common in Langkawi and Kedah. And also maybe our common carnivorous finfish. That's kind of species that I think suitable to be implemented in the west part, in Peninsula. Yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
west part is Sabah. Yeah. You mean west part or east part? I'm sorry.
I think, yeah, West Malaysia.
Oh, West
Peninsula.
Malaysia is Sabah. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So last question on the IMTA in Vietnam and Malaysia. Have you tested for climate impact, such as reduced acidification?
We haven't tried. We haven't done on that part, but we have one project working on the climate change CCA impact on this project, but it's still ongoing. But it's still under experimental phase. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's all. Yep, that's all. Thank you, Dr. Waidatul, and I'm passing the mic to Dorinde.
Thank you very much. Then it's my great pleasure to at last but not least, sorry, would like to introduce Pauline O'Donoghue. She is a senior researcher at the aquaculture team at the Marine Institute in Ireland, and she'll be talking about the results from another EU project, which is already finished, the Astral project, and their findings on IMTA. So Pauline, we see your presentation in full mode. Perfect. Floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Dorinde, and thank you for inviting me to speak here today at the INNOAQUA webinar. So let me start by saying the title of my talk is IMTA Species of the Future, but just to clarify that a lot of the species that I will present to you today are already aquaculture species, but they're species of the future with regard to IMTA. So I want to present to you today the findings of the Astral project. And then I will focus in on the open water IMTA system, which we looked at in the Marine Institute on the west coast of Ireland. So the Astral project is now concluded. We finished over a year ago, and we were looking at resilient and sustainable aquaculture. You can see here that some of the topics that we looked at within this project, we touched on IMTA business models, we looked at microbiome studies, circularity and LCA assessments, human capacity, and we also engaged as much as possible with stakeholder groups to try and promote IMTA as a way forward for aquaculture globally. So within the Astral project, we had different types of systems. In Ireland and Scotland, we had open water systems. We had a recirculating aquaculture system based on biofloc in Brazil, and then we had a land-based pump-to-shore system in South Africa. We also then had colleagues working in Argentina, where aquaculture is practically in its infancy and they do not currently practice IMTA. So they were using the knowledge that was gained from the other IMTA labs, as we call them, to see what the potential was for IMTA in Argentina. So we found through the course of the project that IMTA gives us many opportunities to diversify the current production systems, and this then creates direct and indirect benefits for the aquaculture industry. So we can see here that some of these benefits include the reduction of ecological impacts and the improving of ecosystem services within each of the systems. It allows for waste reduction through bioremediation. It can give products a marketplace advantage when products are presented to the customers. It can improve societal perception of the aquaculture industry and the products that we produce. It can optimize the availability of valuable aquaculture space, which we all know is in a premium. It allows for the commercial benefit for growing other seaweed products on one site, again, optimizing space. It diversifies the income and cash flows of the farmers involved, allowing for increased resilience in their business models. And as I've mentioned already, it adds ecosystem services. So briefly, what is IMTA? And my colleague in Saba has already touched on this, but it is a sustainable aquaculture production which combines multiple species from different trophic levels based on their complementary ecosystem functions. It is made up of fed species, and in particular, we see that this can be finfish, and then the inclusion of low trophic species which extract the particulate or organic nutrients which come from the finfish, and then the dissolved inorganic nutrients are extracted by the seaweed species. So moving on then, these are the species that we did look at within the Astral project, and in total we looked at 23 different species over the course of our trials in each of the different IMTA production methods. The species of the future we then decided on were 15 species of these 23 that we can put forward as saying that they are viable candidates for IMTA in each of those type of systems. And now you can see there the lists. I won't go into them because there's far too many, but you are familiar with most of these species and the combinations within the IMTA systems. And then to look further at what we did within the Marine Institute on the west coast of Ireland, which was an open water production site. The name of it is Lehanapool, and it's based off the west coast of Ireland. It's about 80 kilometres from where I work in the Marine Institute in Galway. It is an open water IMTA site, and we do in this site include the fed species and the extractive species, both shellfish and finfish. These are the trial species that we looked at within the course of the Astral project, and some of these you will recognise as aquaculture species. Some of them are not dedicated aquaculture species, and we have concluded towards the end of our trials that they would not be suitable for IMTA going forward. You can see there that we trialed European lobster. So within the use of these, we trialed them in the system and they worked very successfully, but as a species, a production species that would produce financial gain, we decided that they would not be suitable because they take so long to grow. You can see there that we also included some cleaner fish because our fed species was Atlantic salmon. We also then had one of our local scallop species called a clushine, or the variegated scallop, and this is very much a trial species, so we didn't put this forward as a candidate for integrated multi-trophic aquaculture of the future. So then that's a brief overview of all the species that we looked at within our open water system. Here you can see the site that we work on, and this is where we have our fish pens. So our salmon are grown in this locality here, and when this site was first set up as a potential IMTA site, we looked at nutrient modelling to see where exactly the nutrients flowed across this area of our production site, and we found that primarily the nutrients would flow towards our low trophic grid. So this area is where we grow produce our extractive species, both our seaweed and our bivalves, and we within this project designed and constructed a bespoke low trophic grid, and this we found was we were able to anchor it within the existing anchor system of the salmon production site. So this would allow for salmon producers to be able to adopt this type of system without much outlay for extra anchor supports within their system. And then of course for scientific statistical robustness, we have our control site to one side of the actual production site. So open water aquaculture into the future. We found that, yes, fed species, seaweed and bivalves as extractive species do increase and diversify the biomass and aid in circularity and bioremediation of current monoculture sites. This type of system improves water quality. It allows for significant removal of CO2 and provision of oxygen. The IMTA that we are talking about in the open water system can either be applied on a site-specific basis, which we looked at within the Astral project, but in the future could also be considered as a bay-wide implication. And this certainly would need more research, and it would be great to see that type of research continue. We can see that there's better use of resources, both on farm with equipment and operatives and so forth, but also again there is a better use of the valuable aquaculture space. There are economic and social resilience with the addition of additional income stream, with the addition of different species, and this then can translate to job creation and risk reduction, because for want of a better description, all your eggs are not in one basket. You have different species being produced on your site at different times of the year, which strengthens your income. And it is a sustainable seafood production method, and this is the basis of the whole system. So within the Astral project, we produced production manuals for each of the types of systems. So these are available to download from the Astral the website, and I would encourage you to do so because there's a lot of very valuable information there. It shows you all the production of the 23 species and hones in on those species that we promote as the species of the future. But then we also have produced the Species of the Future catalogue, which gives the details of the 15 candidate species that we promote as potential IMTA-RAS species to be used going forward. Also available within this information is the potential for IMTA in Argentina, which was the work conducted in that country as part of the Astral project, and also the potential for IMTA in Nigeria. So those are valuable resource documents that are available for you all to have a look at if you so choose. So then, of course, we have seen the benefits of IMTA and how they could be implemented, but also there are challenges, and these were something that we reviewed, and we had quite a lot of interaction with stakeholders, including industry, researchers and so forth across the Astral project. And we found that there was a lot of commonality between each of those different types of stakeholders as to the challenges that IMTA face into the future and why that we don't see the upscaling that we would like to see. And we found that it's largely, well, first of all, it's largely economic and regulatory. So we see that the industry they need to see more questions answered with regard to the economics. They would like to see further business cases showing the capital expenditure and the operational expenditure. They would like to see advanced life cycle assessments with more details. They would like to see circularity assessments for particular species and more information on those. So as researchers and the researchers that are here with us today, I think that we're all see that when you do a body of research, both you answer the questions that you're looking at in the course of the project, but you always throw up much more research questions as you go forward. And I think IMTA is a classic example of this. I think we have discovered that a lot more questions need to be answered, and that is something that the industry would like us to do and like to hear. One of the other outcomes and the challenges that we found is an imbalance between income between the trophic levels can discourage the adaptation of IMTA. We need to be able to prove to the industry that if they undertake IMTA, that they can benefit financially from that. And again, some questions need to be answered on that. New trophic levels in an IMTA setup can add complexity to the farm in terms of husbandry and infrastructure, and this potentially can increase costs and effort, and again this would be seen as a barrier to the implementation and the uptake of IMTA for the existing monoculture aquaculture producers, certainly in Europe, where we would have had a lot of conversation with the industry. We also discovered within the course of the project, we reviewed organic standards with regard to IMTA and EU legislations, and we found that the organic standards do apply for each of the species individually. However, IMTA is not particularly yet on the radar of the certification bodies, but they are very much aware that it is a potential new process for producing seafood, and they will be delving further into this and looking at their standards to see how IMTA could be incorporated into those. But one thing we did discover was that there is a certain ambiguity in one particular piece of EU legislation, and that you can see the regulation number there. This particular piece of legislation prohibits the use of animal waste as food source for other animals, and this was brought into place years ago with regard to the dairy industry and the beef industry, and unfortunately there's unintended consequences potentially for IMTA, particularly if an IMTA setup is producing the likes of bivalves. So then I suppose to sum up that farmers are very familiar with their current systems, and sometimes change is unattractive and can be seen as risky. But I do believe that currently we are undertaking a level of research into IMTA that will allay some of these fears and hopefully make it more attractive for monoculture producers to diversify into IMTA with the support of hopefully policymakers, and to see that the sustainability element and the circularity of IMTA will be categorised as a way forward. So that's, sorry, my system, thank you. So there are my contact details, and if anybody would like to contact me or have any questions, you can please do so now, or we can talk in the panel session in a few moments. So thank you very much, and thank you to INNOAQUA for allowing me to present some of the findings of the Astral project.
Thanks so much, Pauline. Great presentation. In view of time, I'll suggest that we directly go to the panel discussion and address all the questions there. So, Patrick, I'll leave the floor to you as moderator.
Yes, thank you, Dorinde. And I think already at this stage, I can say that this has been a very successful webinar. The very, very interesting presentations, and good to see the similar problems on, let's say, the European side, on the Asian side. So maybe before we tackle the issues on economics and legislation, I would like to first address a couple of questions that have been posted in the Q&A. A couple of people were wondering, are there any biosecurity problems in using IMTA, disease risks, etc.? Rui or others, any comments on that?
I can comment. Yes, I can comment briefly. We still don't have actual data from our system. Like I said, it's something that we will have to deal with. I honestly do not anticipate that we will have such a problem. I mean, data from different scales, from large scale and so on, actually tells the otherwise, that there are some potential problems in the water from the fish farm that could actually be solved with the presence of seaweeds because of their known antibacterial properties and some of the bioactive compounds that are released to the water and so on. Of course, this is one thing is to say this to a fish farmer, but if they are operating a unit that produces 2.5 million juveniles and then has to feed an whole company and so on, we really have to prove this in real time. And we hope that will give the first steps to be able to prove this. But I honestly do not anticipate that we'll have such kind of problems, at least not for the fish.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate your positive reaction, because I think that there are indications that in terms of microbial management and microbial control, that working in such a system that you could see some beneficial effects rather than opposite. And maybe I want to address this question to Natrah. I know that you are also working on the microbial aspects. Any comments you can make in this respect?
Yeah. Actually, we received a grant working on IMTA, and that is among the aspects that we are looking. But then it's actually not easy to measure also. That's why what we did is we tried to measure everything in such a control system, land-based, tank, looking at the microbial committee. And from there, we can later have more evidence and also standard protocols that can be linked with biosecurity.
Yeah, I want to address the same question also to Pia, working on the microalgae. Might this IMTA approach contribute to more microbial stability? You said that you were doing work on the microbiome. You have initial results already, or no from literature?
No, we do have initial results already. So it's difficult to really say if it's really stable, because each experiment was only like 10 to 15 days, right? But what we could see, like in the RAS water, we did see that the microbial community remained very stable over the time that we sampled. For the freshwater, for the brackish water, and for the seawater, but they were different. So the community was different between the freshwater, brackish water, and seawater, where the seawater and brackish water was a bit more similar. But also, like in our cultivation, right, we did not interfere with the RAS system. We did not put our water coming out from the algae back, so we really did not have any impact. So that was basically the RAS system regulating itself. And then for the microalgae, we could see that for chlorella, the bacterial community remained relatively similar during the cultivation, but for Phaedactylum and Nanochloropsis, we saw definitely a clear shift from the beginning to the end of the cultivation. So the starting community changed to a different one, and then it kind of kept changing. So it could be that after longer time of cultivation, it would have stabilized, like being a mix of bacteria that were already there and some that came from the RAS. But yeah, therefore we would need more long-term studies. But what we did see that the bacteria that were present, they did not affect the microalgae. They grew just as well. They also didn't increase in number, so they were just like there.
Thank you. a question by Björn, and I have seen that some others were also addressing questions in the same context. Is it difficult for the shrimp farmers to sell the multitude of species they are producing in IMTA? So a shrimp farmer, of course, has his clients, but now the different other products. So maybe Mrs. Montakan, what about applications in Thailand? Any comments you can make on that, on the difficulty or the opportunities for the farmers to sell extra products? No, we don't hear you. We don't hear you.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Okay. In Thailand now we get like that we get a low decrease of production of shrimp and also a lot of some difficult. But however, we have tried before that we produce shrimp together with a culture of seaweed. That we use colopa and use the water from colopa to culture shrimp, and we get a positive result because the seaweed can generate oxygen, very high oxygen in the afternoon, and this can be the benefit for shrimp, and we can also sell the seaweed together with the product from shrimp. And also we study about the using of the green seaweed like some species now like a Cladophora and Enteromorpha. That is like a byproduct from shrimp. And nowadays we collaboration with the private sector that they use seaweed as the textile. And for the textile to make is for the textile that they can use is that the material for produce clothes and so on. And so I think for using the seaweed as the culture together with shrimp farm or either the byproduct seaweed from the unused or waste of seaweed before. Now in Thailand we can apply it to the bioplastic, for the bioplastic container, and also for the textile as I told you before, and now we are planning to develop another product as well.
To come back to what you were just mentioning about using the caulerpa grown in the shrimp farm in that integrated system, what about health issues? I mean, what kind of legislation was required? Had the Department of Fisheries or other authorities to come up with some rules and regulations on what kind of depuration technique needs to be applied? So how did that work in Thailand?
So actually is not how to say for the registration. For the shrimp we already have like a DAP that this is not the control but is the voluntary, and we not go into that they have to produce seaweed together with the shrimp. So it means that now the farmers they have the freely to develop their recirculation system together with seaweed. We don't have any strict regulation about this. So for the standard, we are quite open. And as long as they didn't produce the wastewater that in discharge to the environment, that's all. It's okay for Thailand.
I think it might be different on the European side. Pauline, you were mentioning there about one of the bottlenecks related to regulation. Can you comment?
Yes. So this piece of legislation was discovered through the analysis of the blockages and obstacles that IMTA may face in the future, and I note that it was also identified in other research projects across Europe. The specific piece of legislation was brought into play. Some of you may remember that back in the 90s there was a crisis with BSE, contamination of dairy and beef farming through waste products entering the food chain there, and this piece of legislation was brought about by that. And I think following from that there is unintended consequences which now could implement and impact aquaculture products, in particular obviously IMTA. So we do need clarification on is this how this piece of legislation affects aquaculture, and in particular the invertebrates within aquaculture. And I think we do need to try and find a pathway to engage with the EU to get clarification on this, but as yet that has not been within my remit, and I certainly would like to get more information on this and the further implications of this. And this perhaps, as I mentioned also, that the organic standards organisations have not dealt specifically with IMTA, and this possibly will be uncovered and to get more attention once the organisations that are responsible for organic standards look at IMTA and IMTA products. So certainly there are unanswered questions here, and I do agree. I do think that this is something that we do need to clarify as time goes on to be able to promote our IMTA products to their absolute fullness.
Yeah, thank you, Pauline. And I think what we heard from, I think it was Wahida or some other earlier presentations, I think we will also have to see how the policymakers can come up with positive recommendations. I liked very much the nutrient credit system. So what kind of incentives could be brought out from, let's say, the pure scientific, but that we translate it into what is more acceptable, what is more attractive when it comes to policymakers. So, Pauline, you or others, any comments on this or suggestions?
As I did allude to in my talk, I think there are still quite a few unanswered questions, and I think some questions may have been answered, but we need more finite detail. And once we have completed that type of research with and quantified the different measures, and be able to say that if you produce X amount of, say for instance, salmon and X amount of seaweed along with some shellfish, you are able to remediate to this percent. And we're not there yet. We don't have those type of specific answers, and I do feel that more research is needed. But that's the direction we need to go. We need to be able to quantify both economically and environmentally the benefits of IMTA to be able to sell it better to our policymakers. So we're definitely on the road. Yes, we're getting there. But I do believe that we do need to do more research. Of course, like the INNOAQUA project and the Astral project, these projects are building the better picture as we go along, and more research is needed.
Like you say, sell it better, but maybe even a more proactive way. And a proactive way where policymakers might come up with some incentives like tax credits. Tax credits where companies that are willing to provide opportunities to research facilities to join in testing, that getting tax credits is like a first step into later commercial applications. Rui, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to add a little bit to what Pauline said. Maybe becoming a little bit controversial here, but I will do it anyway. I think that besides communicating and of course communicating the results of the projects, we have to do it in a way that the policymakers will actually understand them. I think they actually need, this is not a critical per se, but I think they actually need some basic knowledge on science sometimes, okay? Because there's sometimes, and this is, again, it's not a critical per se. Most of our policymakers, they're not coming from science background. They're coming from, I don't know, legal background and other kinds. And there are some basic scientific notions that they don't have them. They lost them. And I think it's very important how to communicate these basics to them. For instance, the discussion about organic and inorganic, it's a good example. For an algae, algae does not distinguish if the nitrogen is organic or inorganic. It doesn't matter. It's always inorganic. It's always N. It's always P. It doesn't matter if it comes from an organic, biological certified source or not. So we need to explain this to policymakers. The same thing with the quality of the idea that a seaweed or an algae coming from a fish effluent is bad, and an algae coming from the beach in front of our house is good, per se, it's not necessarily right. depends on per se bad water. It can have good quality water. So the focus should not be on the process, but should be on the final product. Does the final product meet food quality product? Yes, good. Doesn't matter if it comes from the beach or if it comes from an IMT system. We need to be able to explain this to the policymakers that the focus should be on the quality of the product. Now, how we produce, if we produce in this water and that water, the water has to be good, period. Water in the shoreline sometimes is bad also. So we cannot take that for granted. It's important how we communicate this to the policymakers worldwide. Very interesting the example that we received from Mrs. Montakan in Thailand. The way they approach this very different from how we do it in Europe. Very interesting example that we need to take to policymakers in other parts.
Absolutely, and that's where a more proactive approach and a more constructive approach, because this is where too often we see rather criticism that create different problems. I see Ms. Wahida, you have the floor.
Yeah, Patrick. Maybe I have a point of view is that maybe the policymakers can propose like tax incentive for the farmers, as well as subsidize part of the aquaculture projects run by the farmer, or maybe direct grants for the startup who plan to work with IMTA. These things, I would say, a very good approach if the policymakers venture into this kind of opportunity for the farmers, as well as, we have carbon credit. Why not working on nutrient credit? The more they remove the pollutions, the more they get credits for that.
Yeah. Before I give the floor to Knut, let me give an example on a practice where you can compare it with our IMTA system. I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago that in China the government was promoting organic rice farming, initially with subsidies. At this moment, it is very well adopted. There are already more than 2 million hectares of organic rice farming integrated, not with the traditional system with carp, but rather with high value species, crayfish. More than 1 million ton crayfish are produced per year in these organic rice farms. Now it is very well adopted because initially there was the difficulty to convince a farmer that with less rice production that he could make a better income. But today it is expanding very fast. Knut, you have the floor.
Yes, I think this IMTA-RAS system much challenges, but if we think in reorganize, I think that more benefit than a monoculture. Look like my case study. You can see that people, the monoculture, that not better than us. But in today, you see certificate ASC I also did the 2 farm IMTA for shrimp, Adapt with the global gap and the BAP, and also for ASC. But ASC, they require, we have a diversity species in the system now, and also CO2 emission, so that the products now adapt all the certificates of the global markets, BAP, HSC, and global gap also. So I think very advantage. But how we do? Because I think if we do the same pond, so many species difficult to approach, difficult to show the farmer, because the cost for selected separates the product very difficult, high costly, also very difficult to treatment. So we divide so many parts in the location, and look like the circulation system I work. I think that is suitable for farmer in Vietnamese today. They follow that system. In the Vietnamese government policy, also stimulate people to work with the IMTA system. But the problem with IMTA system lets the production. How we do the production. In Vietnam today, we cooperation with the host company, that company, and Minh Phu company together built the system more than 2,000 hectares like that, because they would like to produce the tilapia cheaper cost and competition with in the world. So that I think if 1 ton shrimp you can produce 200 kg of the tilapia cheaper, no cost. But the people, they're concerned about the toxins, they're concerned about evolution. I think not, because the shrimp feed already certified that the goods, no contamination, heavy material. Why they say the evolution? So that is why I have evidence a lot to practice. They really reduce the pathogen, but we only still concerned about the parasite EAP. EAP can transmission and accumulation in the seaweed pond interactive. But now I generate another pond for treat them by settling only methods, settling microsporidium for shrimp. I think that's very good solution. But if you do only one pond, look like European do, I think very difficult to convince the farmer together. But I also would like to tell them, tell you about why you don't thinking about that IMTA for marine fish in land-based that is usable, very useful. Because normally in an Asian country, always go to the sea, open sea, and also pollution in the sea. They never measure how long did it cover. Only like this. In Vietnam also strategy would like to open the market, open the area in the sea. That I think not a solution in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Knut. Indeed, there is still a lot more work that needs to be done when it comes to quality control, when it comes to health issues, but we should rather tackle them a constructive way. Pia, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just have a very short comment on concerns on product quality of algae that have been grown on effluent flood water from fish. You also have to think that it's the same water that the fish grow in, right? And they are produced for feed. So it's basically the same.
Yeah.
So can't be that bad.
Yes, thank you. Anna, I cannot see the questions that are coming in. Can you address some questions?
Sure. We received a question from Maria Marip. Perhaps a consumer preference study could be conducted along with a recommendation on how aquaculture byproducts can be better accepted in the market. For example, in China, seaweed is commonly found in almost every dish, whereas this is not the case in many other countries. Therefore, it is important to consider and study where products such as seaweed and algae can be positioned. It's just a comment. Yeah, sure.
Well, we have indeed these big differences in feed habits between Asia and Europe and the Western world. But I think we can definitely learn in Europe. We can definitely learn from what are traditional practices and new practices in Asian countries, because it is amazing to see how creative they are in Asia in developing new products based on seaweeds, based on the byproducts in the IMTA. Dorinde?
Yeah, I totally agree that we should learn from other sides of the world. Just to also address this, that in INNOAQUA we are actually looking at this consumer preference study, specifically with a focus on the German and Spanish markets, because that's where our food production partners are currently in. So the idea is to really understand what would make them interested in buying algae-based products, and then to apply that knowledge coming from there in our formulation of those products. So keep an eye out on our social media and websites, because hopefully those results will start streaming in soon.
I have a question for Pauline and maybe others also. From your country's experience and particularly the Astral project, what lessons can be shared about building successful algae aquaculture partnerships and where it is important involving the farmers, the researchers and the industry and the policymakers?
Yes, thanks, Patrick. So here in Ireland, our seaweed industry in the past very much was harvest-based, but now we are shifting towards aquaculture of seaweed. And in that vein, only last year, the Irish Seaweed Association was put together. So this is a platform where farmers, researchers, policymakers and the industry come together to share their knowledge, their experience and to try and problem solve. So that's a very, very good step forward for Irish seaweed production in a whole. So some of the obstacles, I suppose, that probably are familiar to other people in other jurisdictions is to do with aquaculture licensing. We find that this process can be very slow and problematic and is seen as a hindrance, and we would like to see that is improved and that is a concern going forward. And then some of the advice, I suppose, and some of the experience that we've gained within the seaweed production industry is that for producers, when they embark on producing seaweed, whether it be for IMTA or in a monoculture situation, that they should secure their markets in advance, so that let them know what they're growing their product for, and make sure that is set up in advance, and to know what the processing entails as well. And then also, some of the feedback we've gotten from the industry and some of these companies have tried and failed, and some have been successful, is that don't try to do the whole value chain yourself, that it can prove too problematic. Just do smaller parts of it. Some of these companies may have ended up in financial difficulties because they bit off more than they could chew. They try to do everything. So I think it is important that when you embark on seaweed culture, that you have your end goals in mind, and that they're attainable. And as I said, the industry is in its infancy in Ireland, and we're going from strength to strength. And with the likes of the Irish Seaweed Association, it is good to see that there are now support mechanisms for the seaweed producers within Ireland, and that the policymakers are involved. So very positive from the Irish setting going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. A question, in fact, that I forgot to raise earlier. It was only in your talk, Pauline, that we heard about mollusks. So when we talk about extractive aquaculture, when we talk about IMTA, I would expect also to hear more about mollusks. So I addressed the question to our Asian partners, and I addressed the question to our European partners. So maybe Ms. Montakan, is there any activity with mollusks in Thailand? And then Wahida also for Malaysia.
Thank you, Professor. About mollusk, actually, now my division, we work about the low carbon, and we get the 3 projects from FAO, and the new project that we submit is the use like Article 6 for the study about the carbon credit of mollusk, and we focus on oyster. And further, we are going to extend to the bud cockle, because we found that for the shrimp farm, now they also use the bud cockle or mollusk as the tool also for the water improvement. And this also will can combine with the seaweed as well. So in Thailand now we go for the carbon credit of the mollusk, and then it can work together with the low carbon shrimp that we start the project last year. And also for the seaweed, we get suggestions from the private sector that we should do negative carbon as well. So I think these 3 species together with mollusk will go for the roadmap for the carbon neutrality and net zero for Thailand.
Thank you. Wahida?
Yeah, Patrick, we do have works on oysters and mussels, as well as giant clam for the IMTA project, to see their efficiency as being the biofilters, actually. But it's still an ongoing research. and basically more on oysters and mussels here in Sabah especially.
Yeah. So Pia, might you consider it as an opportunity to convert the microalgae into mollusk meat?
Could be an option, as microalgae are like a feed source for the mollusks. And I'm not totally aware how much thing that is. I think it's a small sector in Norway to grow mollusks. But I haven't personally worked with it yet, but could definitely be an option. I don't know if Dorinde has more to say to this.
No, yeah, I guess we would have to export because indeed it's not a huge market yet in Norway, but it's definitely interesting.
Yep. Are there any other questions from the participants? You raise your hand or you bring up the question in the Q&A.
Yes, there is a question from Dorinde. I see that there are different approaches in terms of who is going to own the IMTA approach. In some cases, it is expected that the fish farmer also take in the production of other species, whereas it could be two companies next door. Any thoughts about pros and cons?
I forgot who it was just a while ago who was saying to do it all in one business, see where you can have some complementarity. Was it you, Rui?
Yeah, I can comment a little bit on that. Yes, Patrick. Yeah, I think different cases will probably have different solutions. But I see your point, Dorinde. In some cases, maybe the fish farmer would want to become the owner or the manager of the seaweed unit. I think that will come probably with time. At this moment, like I said, the difficulty is to have somebody that will be able to manage the system. So the way I see it, if they are open to actually host a unit like this in their unit like right now, they will probably tend to be more like an spectator and benefit eventually from the water, from the recirculating the water and so on. With time and if we are successful in developing these systems and they see they have the tools to actually manage the systems, and as they will start seeing the seaweed coming out as a product, not just as a service for their water, but also as a product, I have no doubt that any business person will actually become interested in becoming seaweed producers as well. But the problem is that the technology and the tool and support has to be there. Then we'll probably we'll also probably face a small legal problem. That's a problem that maybe happens only in Portugal, is that the license for aquaculture is typically attributed not to one company but to one site. So, and typically one site has one company, one license. So this is something that we'll probably need to change if two companies want to share the same site. I mean, it's a technicality, of course, it's a legal aspect. I'm sure it's not very difficult to change, but at least in Portugal, this would have to be changed so that one site could actually have two different licenses for two different companies, just sharing the water, let's say. That's a different thing, but that's why I see it in the future.
Yeah, local regulations might indeed have to be considered. But back to Thailand, where I know that you have the Kaulerpa farmers. Are the Kaulerpa farmers also interested to work with shrimp farmers and see, let's say, the byproduct of Kaulerpa as an ingredient they can use in their processing facilities? And for you?
For me? Okay. In Thailand now, the 90% of the shrimp production is from peanut vanamide that they produce is quite low salinity of water, like around 5 ppt. That is not suitable for Kaulerpa. However, we produce Kaulerpa with other species like swimming crab and also maybe for the Penis monodon. And if they culture together with shrimp, normally it's in the other province like Phetchaburi or Samut Sakhon that they has quite high salinity and they can produce. And now we have the how to say the product that we produce is for the cosmetic, as I told you before, that we will buying the colopa to extract, and we will get like a extract from the farmer. So it means that farmers can prepare just the material, pre-processing material for the industrial to do the extract, and then add it in the cosmetic like a serum, and it can add after the value. And for this is just for colopa, but for UNVA, this is more versatile of product, and also we have a lot of product as well. And this one we will use to promote it to the farmers that produce shrimp in PE, not earthen pond. So for the UNVA, we promote for the farmers that they have the system that they use the PE pond. But for the earthen pond, it depends on the farmers located in which province. But on of these species, we are produced for the product already in the nowadays.
Thank you. Anna, are there any other questions?
Yes, we received from Anne-Marie. As an example for IMTA to use Atlantic salmon, blue mussels and seaweed together as an ideal IMTA system, is it feasible with the knowledge today? Where are the bottlenecks or knowledge gaps?
Yeah, who will address this one?
I can take that. This is Pauline here.
Yes, Pauline.
Anna-Marie, you've just described my ideal IMTA setup. Thank you very much. However, yes, with regard to bottlenecks and knowledge gaps, both exist. Licensing primarily for multi-species sites is hard to get. And then the buy-in by the industry is also not where it could be. To farm multiple species on one site, you need different levels of expertise, different equipment, different, there's multiple layers, so they can prove problematic. Knowledge gaps, the industry to be able to buy in to IMTA to produce those 3 species on one site. We need more information, as I said, life cycle assessments, the remediation potential, but I think we need to incentivize this, and I think that will alleviate bottlenecks and knowledge gaps, if whether it be tax credits, carbon credits, grants of some nature, I'm not entirely sure, but we certainly need to incentivize the industry to diversify from monoculture. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, and I think yes, go ahead, Anna.
Sorry, Patrick. So the next question we got is from Mariam, how the volatile organic compounds profiles of mollusk produced in IMTA compared to wild mollusk?
I'm not a mollusk specialist. Who can answer that one? Well, Mariam, we will look it up. We will look it up and let you know.
There is one more question. Hi, I'm Saiful from NTNU Norway. It is obvious that seaweed may be used in IMTA or any other culture method to absorb nutrient from the water. But then there are limited information on how much is actually the demand of the seaweed in global market. We have experienced farmed seaweed in a project, but then it's difficult to sell the biomass. Could anyone say something on this? Would be nice to hear something from any of you on this matter.
Well, I think we heard in different presentations that one needs to look into different applications, not just to compete. I think it was one of you who was mentioning the purpose cannot be just to enter into an existing market and be a small player and have difficulty to enter there, but rather what we heard from several of the presenters, looking into new applications, what Ms. Montakan was mentioning about cosmetics, what others were mentioning about using it in feed ingredients, immunostimulatory effects, etc. I think a lot of work is ongoing and requires further study. Any extra comments from the panel?
If I may comment, Patrick.
Yes, Rui.
I mean, there's obviously, if somebody somewhere is producing 37 million metric tons of seaweed per year, it's because there's a market offshore. I'm sure there is a market. And we are all aware of that. Difficulty sometimes in countries like we've seen in Thailand, where they are actually promoting or educating people how to consume seaweed. We are trying to do the same. Every project in Europe actually has a part of dissemination. Our project, we're trying to develop products, new products, using our seaweed as ingredients or extracts of our seaweed as ingredients, simply because the way we consume, in Europe, we're already consuming a lot of algae and seaweed, but we're importing more of it, and we are consuming the agar, the carrageenan, the algae nuts, and so on and so forth. So what we're trying to create here, it's develop the market in a way that we are able to consume seaweed and pay for the seaweed products the price that it actually costs to produce within Europe and within our systems. So that's the difficulty, is to be able to value. Because obviously, like I said in the beginning, we are not able to produce seaweed at the same cost that the production costs in China and in other countries. Their production is huge and large and very low cost. So we need to value our productions in Europe in a different way and find developments and find new products, either from food, either for feed, either for cosmetics and so on. The different applications that would actually value the seaweed and the algae are produced in Europe in these kind of systems. Later on, I'm sure there are other, as the scale grows up and more producers will go into the market and the price of production will decrease, then we can actually target other kinds of applications like the biomaterials, the textiles, and these kind of materials, that the applications that we talk to. But I personally think that the way we need to develop the market is with high value products. And the customers that are willing to pay more for these kind of products are, I think at this point, essentially the food, the feed consumers, and the people in the cosmetic world. For bioplastics, for other kinds of applications that we actually need tons, seaweed and algae will be a commodity, and the prices of that will be very, very low. And we are not at the position to supply tons and tons of seaweed at a very low price. But the global market exists. We just need to be able to develop different markets in different locations according to the needs of our societies, our regional needs in Europe, or in Thailand, or in other countries that are trying to develop this sector, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Rui. And in fact, that brings me to the final question and the final point that to some extent is also answering the question by Ioannis. As I understand, IMTA in the EU nowadays is not really worth it due to regulatory and permit issues. Is there any realistic projection that we could make it in the near future? Well, I think this webinar here, where we bring these two continents together and see what we can learn from each other, brings me to the final point for Dorinde. How can regional international collaboration help scale important innovations in algae for aquaculture? Dorinde, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks so much. Well, first of all, I think a lot of it is about the sharing of the technological aspects, as we have done today as well, but also all the other things around it that we can learn a lot from each other in terms of regulatory aspects and what is allowed in what parts of the world and what not, and why not. But also indeed on how to stimulate it in terms of tax credits and all these things that we were addressing before. So I won't repeat what everybody has said, but I do think there's on all aspects there's a lot to learn from each other in events like this. But also hopefully coming out of this further collaborations between the two parts of the world that we are addressing today.
Okay, and I think now we hand over to Natrah.
All right, I just would like to continue from what Dorinde is saying. I think there's a need for more collaboration efforts, and there is also need to more coordinated efforts to align everyone. Thus, I would like to thank you, INNOAQUA and also ES, who have perfectly led the foundation through this webinar. And when talking about aligning everyone, it is not only the science, but I think it's also important to align the industry people who are involved with it, the policymakers, not to forget the community, and learn together on how to understand the principle behind of everything, although the problems can be different from EU, for example, and us in Asian countries. And that is why we think, and I personally think, because in our research group, that is the aim of our group this year, is actually to at least align everyone first in our country, Malaysia, and work step by step regionally in the Southeast Asia, the Asian countries, and later beyond Europe, etc. Thank you.
Dorinde, back to you for the closing remarks.
Okay, thanks so much. Yeah, I really would like to thank everybody, especially our speakers and moderators of today, for being here and for making this possible and sharing all your knowledge. And I also really would like to thank the audience for being here. I see that we had a really large amount of people joining over the past 3 hours. It has been a full 3 hours, and we actually are going over time now. So that's it looks like there's a huge interest from everybody. So this was very much for sharing our knowledge, but we would also like very much to invite for further collaboration. So as mentioned already, the presentations will be shared, the whole webinar will be shared on YouTube. We will also send out a small survey asking for whether you would have any interest in future collaborations and on what topics. So please, yeah, I hope you will receive that information later this week, and then we're looking very much forward to hearing back from you. So that's it from me. Thank you very much, and then I'd like to give the word to Alistair from EAS for the final remarks.
Thank you very much, Dorinde.
If possible. Yeah.
Come in, Natrah.
Yeah. Just would like to take few minutes, the last minute, to share some slides from our side. We are actually from we have a group known as ALBIC, or Algae-Biota Technology and Innovation Group, which is one of the university research program which is aligned with a holistic nation development approach. We are still green. Our group is just established last year actually, but we are very active. We receive funds from international funders, IDRC, Global Service Canada, and also industrial partners. And here in UPM, next, we have actually members from 5 different faculties interconnected into 3 major teams, which is circular aquaculture, engineering and technology, ecology and environment. Actually, all of this is, myself, I'm being very inspired by the establishment of the International Artemia Aquaculture Consortium, spearheaded by one of my mentor, Professor Patrick, and also my senior, Professor Sunny Yang. And I hope, similar international consortium can also be initiated. And I just would like to share also where basically we are going to organize in the pipeline, other than this webinar, other events. I don't know whether Anna, you can share that slide. Okay. The most recent will be in April, where we would organize regional algae focus group discussion involving regulators and also industries, academicians, especially from Asian countries, followed by symposium on circular aquaculture in September, and also lastly Algae Asia in November. I would circulate the information later. Thank you.
Alistair, then we go to you. I'm not sure if everybody managed to see the presentation by Natrah, but we'll share it with all the other presentations, so then you'll get all the information.
Okay, thank you very much. So basically, I just wanted to say a very final couple of words from the European Aquaculture Society. It's been a pleasure for us to organize this webinar, and it's been wonderful to see so many people interested in it and registering for it and actually taking part in it. It's been a long way webinar, but it's been a very interesting one, and I'd like to thank our speakers and panelists for giving their insights, their experience, and sharing their ideas on how we take this further. In Europe now, the political scene is changing, and strategies related to food, related to production of food, related to food security, these are taking a higher political interest. And one of these areas in which we're working with what we call the EU Aquaculture Assistance Mechanism is looking at various options to monetize, but also especially valorize the ecosystem and climate benefits that aquaculture provides. And we've had a lot of examples from these two regions of the world today on how that can be done. And lower trophic or non-fed or less extensive, less intensive aquaculture is being the basis now of new European strategies. So the interest is there. And once we have political interest, we all know that then that is facilitated on regulatory issues, on economic issues, on access to supporting tools. So it's coming. It's taken way too long in order. But finally now we are seeing that this is moving at a European level, and we see how it's already moved very quickly at an Asian level. So thank you very much indeed to you for your also to thank Patrick for moderating the discussion, and Dorinde as the coordinator of the INNOAQUA project for guiding us through this morning. Thank you very much indeed, and have a lovely afternoon or evening wherever you are. Thank you.